Well, I don't have much money, and I don't have much time, and I don't have many friends I could call mine. And I've been deceived, yeah, but haven't we all? I've seen the sun rise, and I've seen the sun fall. Well, I don't know why, and I don't know where, and I don't even know how, and I no longer care. But I've seen your face, and I've heard your call. Yes, I've seen the sun rise, and I've seen the sun fall. I've seen the sun hang like a flame in the sky. Yes, I've seen the sun turn, and I've seen the sun die. And I often think now, before our time is run, will there be any thoughts for what we have done? Well, I don't have much money, and I don't have much time, and I don't have many friends I could call
Hello and welcome to SDAQ&A. My very special guest today is Dr. MatthewJ Lucio.
Oh, doctor.
Yes, from this is episode 1 of season 8. So welcome everybody. Glad you're tuning in today. Peter Mashenko says, "Oh, I've got a brilliant idea with the intro there that apparently helps the algorithms." Didn't even know that, Peter. Peter, are you watching from Voice? We're going live today in Voice, SDA People's Voice, a group I started maybe around 2016, something like that, or 2015, as a response to the no vote. So there we go. Now, welcome everybody. We're going to chat today a little bit about the spring sessions that are in progress right now. And something kind of came across my radar, across my desk, and I misinterpreted it, and I only really got the accurate view this morning when we were chatting via Messenger, Matthew, that the church, I thought, were going to address some errors in doctrine they'd had, but no, they're wanting to address some errors that are creeping into the church. So I was on all the posts. I was like, yeah, awesome, positive. They're addressing some doctrinal errors. And embarrassingly this morning went, oh, hang on a second. which made it all of a sudden even more interesting for our interview today. Because when I asked you, I thought we were going to chat about these errors that the church were going to address and we're correcting a little bit and tweaking to make more biblical. So I'm now even more interested in how we chat today, because we're talking about errors that are seeping in and creeping into the church. So my guest, as I said, is MatthewJ Lucio, and he runs an incredible podcast. Honestly, in my top 5 all-time favorite podcasts, Adventist
All
History
right.
Podcast. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. It is such a good show. I haven't been able to listen the last maybe 6 weeks. Just had so many things on. And I just encourage everyone watching, go and find this on your favorite podcast platform. Just type in Adventist History Podcast and you will not be disappointed. I love the way you approach it as a historian and the Adventist history. And sometimes you put your 2 cents in and your humor, which I love. But the thing I love about chatting to historians is you're really just saying, well, here's the facts. You guys do with as you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's it.
yeah.
Well, thank you for the kind welcome, and I appreciate the honorary doctorate that I got from Dixon
Oh,
University.
yeah. Has that not
It
happened
means a
yet?
lot.
Wow.
No, it has not happened yet.
Mate, I
And
better remove that right now.
no, I could be like Roy Allen Anderson, who got who relied on his honorary doctorate and called himself doctor.
There you
Oh,
go.
there it goes, man! It was so hard won. I worked so hard for that.
You can take a
Now I just
screenshot of it
lost it.
though and just use it.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to be on the internet now
I
forever.
know, forever.
So
No,
I just appreciate that honorary doctorate. I've been waiting for someone to give me one, so
it's
I didn't
from the
have to go work
it's
for it.
it's from SDAQ&A University,
Yeah.
where I am a professor.
Yeah, right. It's very legit.
Now, I wanted to also show, and I don't know if you can hold it up. I've got so many things in my little shared file here.
Mm.
That photo that someone drew. Let's quickly share that story.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
amazing. Listen to this, everybody. I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah. I'll tell the story. Well, anyways, I have an Ellen White shirt. Should have worn it. I think I've worn it in the past.
You
And
have, yes.
yeah. So apparently somebody had purchased one and was wearing it around, and a graffiti artist who will not be named saw that, was inspired by a slimmer, cooler-looking Ellen White, and that was on the shirt, and then painted it on a bridge near Avondale. No.
I saved the I don't know if I can hold it up so people can see. So there's the bridge in Cooranbong,
Yep.
and it's anyone that lives in Cooranbong will know the bridge I'm talking about. It's just down from the shops, down from Alton Road, but on the painted on the wall, graffiti is a design that Matthew Lucio has turned into a T-shirt, and someone at Avondale, no doubt, one of the Avondale University students, loves your podcast so much that they've put that up there. So I thought that was incredible.
Not only do I get an honorary doctorate, but I am inspiring vandalism, and that really is something my mom would be so proud. I have really come a long way. I mean, can you imagine if Ellen White were alive today and realized somebody spray painted her face underneath the bridge?
You know what's funny is that when she lived here, she would have crossed that bridge. Now,
Really?
the original bridge, of course, is not there anymore, but that particular bridge has only been, I don't know, I don't even want to get into the history of it. I don't really know what I'm talking about. But she would have actually crossed over where that graffiti is.
Oh,
She would have crossed
oh.
over in a horse and buggy.
Well, now it is dedicated to her.
Yeah.
We're going to call that the Ellen White Memorial Bridge now.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, let's bring in a couple of questions. People have stumbled across today. It's not normally the day I go live, although I have started doing 3 shows a week. And thank you. You were going to be originally on tomorrow, but I'm maybe you didn't know that, but I am tomorrow going to be on Arthur and Teresa Beam's show, and I'm going to try and go live here as well. And that was the only time we could kind of make it happen. And then I'm interviewing Dr. Denny 14 on Thursday, my time, Wednesday, your time. Those interested in watching that, check the times, though. They're different to normal. I think it's going to be more 9:30 my time. I'm not sure, but check. I'll have them correct. So it's going to be an interesting, fascinating week. I'll just bring up a couple of quick questions, and then we're going to watch a little bit of this actual session that's in play. We're going to watch more than I thought because I want to get a real feel for what's actually going down. And then we're going to open up to you to share some of these errors. Now, Arthur Klim, how are you, Arthur? Arthur and I did a really interesting show on Fred Veltman. I think you were watching.
Yes, that was good.
Yeah. And he says, admitting you were wrong is good for people unless you're in church governance. And Peter Mashenko writes, oh, I like this one. Barry Ford writes, G'day, Peter, Matthew, and all the Dixonites.
Oh, look at that. You have a Ford pointing the Dixonites.
Oh, look
The torch
out.
has been passed.
They'll be saying, are you a Dixonite or are you a CB?
That's right. No one's going to say a Lucioite. So
you never know. And it has a couple of double connotations there too. Yeah, it infers that you may, I tell you what, I've had a lot of pushback this last week, which I will chat about off air maybe, but where that subtle, Adventists are great at the subtle ad hominem attack. Peter Mashenko, I said that just for you. They're very good at going, I wish I had some of them in front of me, but things like, I wish certain people would stop, criticizing the church and this kind of thing. And the reality is a healthy movement accepts, welcomes, and should try and foster the dissident voice because it's just questions and asking, and it stimulates a healthy community, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to have a free exchange of ideas, free to us. I mean, within certain limits here, but you got to have an atmosphere where you feel free, where it's not kind of totalitarian in culture.
Yeah.
Where you feel like if I step out of line, like someone's going to bring the axe down on me, for the slightest infraction. Like, you can't live in fear of your own church.
There's got to be a balance.
There's got to be a balance, right? But I think Adventism is a really diverse place. It really is. I mean, I think that's special. Not that it's the only diverse place, not that it's the only diverse church, but I mean, look, there's a lot of different kinds of Adventists. There's a lot of weird Adventists, and somehow they get along. We'll talk a little bit about the Trinity later on as some of these things that are creeping in. But there's plenty of anti-Trinitarian Adventists.
Yeah.
No one's on a witch hunt to expel them. Now, if they stir things up in their local church saying we all need to give up the Trinity, usually, something will happen where it's like, we got to stop that. But just existing, keeping their ideas to themselves, they're there.
Yeah. And I think, though, the litmus test that I put to it is if you're a currently employed worker of the Adventist Church and you can't come on my show because you fear loss of employment, if it was maybe, a 20% felt they couldn't come on, or even 80% felt they couldn't come on. But I reckon, I have, of all the requests I've put out there, maybe 500 requests in the last couple of years, only a couple actually agree to come on. And
I've been on here 3 times.
Yeah, and you are currently employed,
of course,
and a worker, and that's that's why I really appreciate you coming on. Denny 14 is coming on. Next week I've got Michael Campbell's coming on.
Oh, look at that!
So there we go.
So many church employees.
Yeah.
Is Denny going to talk about Butler? His book?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting conversation. Yeah. Couple more quick things before we jump into that video. Peter Mashenko says the errors creeping in are independent thought and engagement with Scripture and the Holy Spirit.
Stop it.
And Rick, I got your message also, so I must reply to that. Those that if you have written to me, by the way, everyone, I struggle with correspondence, not because necessarily there's so much of it. I'm just a very disorganized muso, and so if you haven't heard back from me, just give me a little reminder. Sometimes I invite people on the show and I forget, and a few weeks later, you still want me on the show? Oh yeah. So please don't. It's just my brain. Can't help it. A couple more quick things. Arthur, Matthew, do you want me to send you a Jesuit sweatshirt like the one I got for Lawrence Seinfeld?
I thought he would have gotten his straight from Rome. I didn't know anyone needed to send him one. But look, I'm never going to turn down free clothes. So
now,
I'm all up for it. Send me one.
Arthur's all up on you. He's got, now that you're going into the conference office, that may not be a very good idea, eh? So when does that position begin?
Begins in June, actually. It begins
I tell you,
in June.
Won't it be interesting if all of a sudden we don't see Matthew on the show post June ever again? Nervous laughter.
Well, keep examining the satellite footage over Chicago. If you see that I spelled help in the parking lot, come get me, Peter.
Exactly.
No, it's going to be fine.
I will. I'll fly over there. I'll fly over.
Thank you.
Don't you worry. Okay,
you.
I'm just turning off for some reason I'm getting a little bit of phone calls coming through. Marion Thorne says, Matthew is my hero.
That's very flattering. I think you could do better.
Hey, well, we noticed Gotham City in the background, so
that's right.
Marion, you might be correct. And we're just bringing in George, considering Ted's. Oh, I shouldn't perhaps put this one up, but the real Adventism. Anyway,
now you're trying to get me in trouble.
So let's watch this video. Now, it is about 10-15 minutes long. I need to be sitting there on the pause button to make sure I don't, if any ads come through, because then we'll get a strike and the whole thing will lose its audio. So I'll be monitoring that. And originally I was just going to play 2 minutes, but as it went on and a couple of other people put in their thoughts, I thought, whoa, this is revealing a lot more about this session that we need to really dig deep into. So let's watch it, and then we'll get your thoughts on the errors that they're trying to address, and we'll have a great conversation.
All right, let's do it.
So here we go. No. Sorry. Won't take a second.
And to member religious education. These two divisions, they are very large divisions. One is the Inter-American Division that has for some time had this type of approach. The other division is the South American Division, which has very successfully utilized this approach. So with all of that in mind, I will now open it for discussion, for comments, for encouragement, because don't forget, by God's grace, we need to fix the problem. And that is to help our church members and all understand what the biblical truths are that we believe in and not allow this slippage. So we open it now for discussion. All right, we have a number of people already. Ella Simmons, first of all, please. I'm sorry, Hal Butler. And then Ella Simmons.
Yes, good morning.
Okay, we need
Elder Wilson began the introduction to this subject by referring to the slippage in the Adventist Church. And Mrs. White talks about a parallel slippage in the early Christian church, where the church did not listen to the apostles and what they taught, but began to bring in worldly ideas into the church at that time. And we all know what happened because of that to the early Christian church. And as a layman, as I talk to other laymen personally on the phone and email, etc., the major concern they have is this slippage that they see in the Adventist church. And I'm very happy for this agenda item because they ask the question, what is the church doing about this slippage? And when they make that statement, I'd like you to think about what they mean by the church. They're not talking about their local church where they attend church on Sabbath. They're not talking about their conference. They're talking about you and me and this committee, and that's who they hold responsible. The ultimate authority in the Adventist Church lies with the layman and who they elect. And this body and the GC session are the entities that they hold responsible for allowing the slippage in the church. And when they have asked me in the past, unfortunately, I have felt like I didn't have an answer for them. But this document, I think, is a direct response to that question, what is the church doing about this slippage? I think it's an extremely important document, and I support it wholeheartedly. I don't see anybody objecting to the first and second sections, but I do anticipate some kickback in the third one in trying to implement that. It's going to be more difficult to get the acceptance, but I think we need to remember that the authority of our educational institutions is delegated to them. The primary authority in the church has been given to this body and the session, and it's their responsibility to oversee that education upholds the pillars of our church and the foundations based on the Bible. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Butler. Appreciate that. We have a number of people who are lined up, and they are lined up according to the sequence that electronically we have. Either they are Zoom speakers or individuals who have come to the microphone. So you are put in order according to the sequence that you have entered your request. So our next speaker is Kathy Prophet on Zoom. I'm sorry, Ella Simmons. Forgive me, the listing fools me a little bit here. Ella Simmons, please go ahead.
Thank you, Brother Chair. I apologize to you and to the body. I've had my camera off and I look a little different right now, but I'm traveling. You can see that I'm in the car. I want to make that apology. It gives me great delight, though, to speak to this item. First of all, I want to recognize and express my sincere appreciation to Mike Ryan for his leadership with the strategic planning group, the working group, and he's already recognized Dr. Trim, David Trim, and also to you, Brother Chair, for your leadership in that regard. For it is this work that makes this day possible. For many years, the leaders in education have reported, have expressed concern about the very things that we're talking about, but have done so at an anecdotal level. But it is the data that are now available through the research of the strategic planning group and the hard work that has gone into that has now provided the tangible evidence that allows this set of recommendations to come forward. I am thrilled. I praise God for the work that has been done by all the groups that you've already mentioned and those who have presented this morning. I will not spend much time. I would want to probably say much, much more. But there's one thing I would like to add, if I may. And that is, and I know that Dr. Beardsley Hardy is there in the auditorium, and I will say that she and I have, for many years, made a certain request, and that I would like to add that thought without taking anything away from what has been presented this morning, but add that thought regarding the preparation of those who at the college and university level are preparing our pastors and our teachers and our scientists and others, that as is financially feasible, that you would please consider expanding the specific preparation that you have recommended here for pastors and for pastoral education. Extend this to our science educators, because although the young people at any level, elementary right through postgraduate, will definitely benefit, and we will see a change. We will see some guarded improvement from what you're recommending for pastors and pastoral leadership and for theological development. But I dare say, when some of them then go to science class, they might hear something different. And this can undermine what has been built up in the other areas. And my other request is that we give consideration for teacher education, that there be some requirements for those who teach our teachers. This is very important as well. Taking nothing away from anything that has been presented this morning. I just praise the Lord. We pulled the car over, and by way of disclosure, Nord is sitting here so he can hear me, but I thought this would not be the kind of confidential item that he could not hear. So I just thank you for what you have provided. I wish that that I had enough energy to give something to this. But as I've said to you, Brother Chair, I'm not looking for a job, but I'm available to volunteer to help out wherever possible. Thank you for what you have provided. I strongly support this as a member of the Executive Committee.
What a wonderful endorsement. Ella, thank you so much. And also pushing us even further beyond the borders of what this document presents. Would that we had a large endowment, and maybe we need to kind of think about that. Some kind of endowment that could help sponsor especially bright, faithful individuals in the scientific fields. Maybe we're going to have to work on that. Of course, yes, our Geoscience Research Institute works carefully. We have Earth and Biological Sciences Department in Loma Linda, tremendous organization that puts out a lot of bright, faithful future employees. But we need to see how we might even be able to expand the accessibility of how students can access that. But thank you, Ella, and greetings to Nord, who is driving you there. And stay safe on the road. And thank you.
Thank you, Brother Chair.
Thank you for checking in. We really appreciate it. Okay, we're going to go now to Kathy Prophet on Zoom, please.
Thank you, Brother Chair. I just really want to commend GCDO for this incredible document and strongly support that we adopt these recommendations. You know, to be honest, when I read this last night, it really brought tears to my eyes. As a mother who has 4 children that are no longer in the faith, not because they went to public school, but because they went to an Adventist school, and the teaching of evolution really caused them to lose their faith. This should never happen in an Adventist school. Many of you know the story of my son. It was very, very encouraging to see the wonderful, thoughtful work that has gone into, in particular, the section number 3. All of it is wonderful. And it's really interesting, Dr. Simmons, because my comments are very similar to yours. The science is missing. And I would like to propose that before we adopt this, we modify it under the section 3.C1 and 3.D under criteria for hiring, and also for curriculum, that we add language that would include science, that we also have the same criteria for science teachers, and also that for the curriculum. And one other idea, it would be wonderful if the committee could have a way of urgently evaluating our schools now, our institutions of higher education. I see it in the plan, but it would be wonderful if AAA could do something to begin the evaluation process. because our children are the future of our church. And we know what what Sister White says about the value of a soul. And our own children are precious to all of us, but they're also the future leaders of our church. So thank you. Thank you so much for this wonderful, encouraging, thoughtful document. I'm just really, really moved and grateful and strongly endorse its adoption. Thank you so much, Brother Chair.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Can we take your comments on the scientific area under advisement, because we're in the process of developing all of this. This is not the last that we will hear about it. That, of course, enters a new dimension, which is extremely important. But we have to do a little thinking on that, and your comments will not be lost. Let me tell you that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, we're going next to Andy Hunsaker on Zoom.
All right, thank you so much, Brother Chairman. And I am just thrilled. I'm thrilled that this measure is being taken, because I've been concerned not just about our educational institutions, but our church in general. And I was really blessed by the other attachments that were sent last night. One of the quotes from Ellen White, who I hold in incredibly high esteem. I appreciated the devotional this morning because we have a church that's in crisis, a crisis of identity, which someone mentioned this morning, the 1980s. This went on long before the 1950s. This is not the first time that we have faced these issues. Ellen White in the 1800s was talking about if our church had continued on after 1844. It's a human nature problem. And so I am thrilled that we're approaching this seriously, and I endorse this 100%. I do want to wonder, though, if the problem may not be just a knowledge problem. So we're going to be giving a document that will talk about knowledge. I think I just froze. Knowledge. And I think that part of the problem is not just knowledge, but that we as a people have forgotten our history. And I think unless we remember our history, we lose our identity. And if we don't have our identity, which defines our mission, defines our purpose, defines our reason for being, we as a church will continue to make the same errors. And so I'm just concerned that, as Kathy said, that we really look at our schools, look at the pastors, because it seems to me that even if we send them something that we hold dear to us, all the doctrines that we hold dear, that unless their hearts are converted and really agree, I'm just fearful that they will not take this to heart. And in the 1800s, Ellen White has a quote that she made after a very impactful General Conference session on history. And speaking to Seventh-day Adventists, she said that we needed to have the uplifted Savior in front of us because many had lost sight of Jesus. She wasn't speaking to the Baptists. She wasn't speaking to the Methodists. She wasn't speaking to the Catholics. She was speaking to we as a people. And I'm just wondering if we do not need to recapture for our people our history and keep it ever before us, reminding us that we are a movement, we're not a church. We're here for a purpose, to declare clearly the three angels' messages in every branch of our activities, be it church, be it education. And so I'm hoping that we can somehow find a way to, encourage or do some assessment of where our leaders in our churches are and our schools that exist currently, because some of these points will not be readily accepted by many in our church. And I just pray that we will get back to the root of the problem and that we don't just pick at the fruit that we actually see. The root is a loss, I think, of our identity as a people. You know, Ellen White made another statement that while men slept, Satan has stolen a march on us. And I think that we need to acknowledge that that march is down the road. And I'm glad that we're not just sitting back and saying the horse is already stolen, why shut the barn door? I agree, we're shutting the barn door now so that we can hasten the soon coming of the Lord. Thank you so much.
Thank you for those wonderful comments, Andy. And the identity of the Seventh-day Adventist Church is very high on the list of our priorities. How we get that across to our church members is the big challenge. And to not allow the devil to distract people from the real focus of who we are. A time is coming very soon when everyone is going to have to make a decision. And that is going to create a crisis in lives where people are unsure as to who they are and why they're part of the Advent movement. So this is all part of it. And I know as we develop this, we will need to make that even plainer. Thank you, Andy, for your very strong comments. We're going to move to David Trim in the auditorium here.
This will be the last one.
The next one will be Ramon Canals. And we have a number of people here in the auditorium that will be speaking, and others who will be speaking perhaps from Zoom as well. Please, David.
Thank you, Brother Chairman. I would like to commend the work of the Special Steering Group and also of the 3 subcommittees, and I'd like to affirm the recommendations. I have 2 general points and then a couple of specific points about wording in the document. First, the general point, the research has been mentioned, including the very sizable number of N's. The N, for those who don't know, is the number of responses to a survey. And so those responses are very large, which makes the data very robust and reliable. You can find the report on the Global Church Member Survey at adventistresearch.info. That's adventistresearch.info, and then choose the option Research Projects commissioned by the General Conference officers. So if you want to get a sense of the issues that have been identified by the Future Plans Working Group and the Steering Group, you can find it in that research, again at adventistresearch.info. The second point, Brother Chair, is I see a number of research projects intended to result in publications and videos and so forth. The wording tends to seem to imply that this would be done by theologians and members of the white estate. I would just make the plea that it involves historians, because as Dr. Hunsaker has just said, our history is crucial to us and it shapes our theology today. So I would just make the plea that this not only be the work of theologians, but also these publications and resources that are going to be produced should involve the work of our Adventist historians as well. I think there's an important work there. Just to turn to the document in particular, Brother Chairman, on page 5, line 4, it says, as constituency elected leaders, GCDO wants to support, etc. Many in GCDO are not constituency elected leaders because the division officers are not elected by a constituency. And Brother Chairman, I think we'll all remember that over recent years we've wanted to stress that division officers aren't elected by a constituency because they are officers of the General Conference. So I wonder if we can use an alternative wording that is used elsewhere in the document of constitutionally elected leaders rather than constituency elected leaders. So constitutionally elected leaders. Also on page 5 at line 38, it says, on their return, this person would be, but it hasn't actually, I'm sorry to be technical and concerned about grammar and English usage, Brother Chairman, but you know me, I can't help myself when it comes to that. There hasn't been a reference to a person at this point, so I would suggest that we revise line 38 to say, a person who has gone through such training would, on their return, be a broad-based resource. And then finally on page 7, again on line 20, it says the constituency elected leaders, when it's referring to division officers, I would again suggest we use the wording that actually is used on line 34 of page 7, constitutionally elected leaders. So that, again, we've tried to make the point that divisions don't have a constituency, and I wouldn't want to see us sending out mixed messages through our documents. But these are minor points, and again, I commend the work of the group and affirm the recommendations.
Thank you, David, for your strong endorsement. And some of those editorial aspects will certainly be noted.
Okay, now I know that was quite long, but it covered some really fascinating points that I think people need to hear in a bigger context than a little tiny snapshot of the conversation there. Last Generation played into it there. A great suggestion by Dr. David Trim that historians be involved with this document. Have you been what you called up there, Matthew? And
Yeah, I don't think he means me.
and look, I want to say this. It's I'll just quickly, bro. I'll just bring up Bronwyn Reed asked, "What is this document about?" Keep watching, Bronwyn, because we're about to unpack that of what's actually going on right now. Has this been passed from suggestion to a committee, voted into policy? But look, there's so many things there. There's the science, there's the anti-evolution view, the sticking to the earth being 6,000 years old. Here's my dilemma, Matthew. I've gotten a lot of pushback because I'm raising these issues, because I'm speaking out. Oh, you've left, just be quiet. I'll read a quote from Grenville Kent that came up on my post recently. Quite judgy. Bah, ha, ha, ha. Compared with your public slapdown of my church, nor, sweetie, need a cuddle? Do you do the Catholics next, Pete? How do you think their leadership team looks? This was in regard to me pointing out there was a picture posted in the Union a couple of years ago on the Union Facebook group of all the men, no women. And people were saying, oh, where are the women? The point wasn't that these men are terrible or bad or anything like that. The point was there's a legitimate statement to make that within the Adventist Church, due to gender only, there are certain positions in the church that women can't have. So I'm raising that was that a fair thing to say? So here's my point. When people raise these issues of criticism or can we speak up now? We disagree with this. We're often faced with, oh, look, just stop talking, please, like that statement there. And Grenville and I are friends. I know he's being a bit tongue-in-cheek there, and he's going to come on the show, and we're going to chat about this a little bit more. But these kind of slapdowns make the inference that we shouldn't be speaking up. But if we don't speak up, then this stuff just gets passed through into policy. So I'm very interested what people watching think about that. When I'm criticized, you're criticized for just raising issues. These slapdowns from what were people I call the good people, the progressive Adventists, they're the ones slapping me down right now. Another one was just written, many Christians spend a lot of time and energy calling each other out. Paul had a better idea than working out everyone else's salvation. Yeah, we know that. We can focus on all the good stuff, but at what point are we made to stop addressing issues that we think are concerning? So I'm not going to talk anymore now. I'm going to hand it over to you. Share with us what are the errors that are creeping into the church, and what is this document that we've just witnessed unfolding?
Okay. So this is a really fascinating experience because I think it's really neat that spring meeting and annual council. These are the two meetings of the General Conference Executive Committee. I think it's really neat that they get live streamed. They don't have to do that.
I know.
Right? They don't have to open it up because it is a boring, very, very technical proceeding. So I appreciate that. It enables us to kind of peek in and see what's going on in the Adventist Church at this high level. Now, the challenge with that is of course, you have very technical proceedings that are somewhat inscrutable for most people. And even I look at these things and I don't know what all the acronyms are and what it's referring to and all this. But specifically in this case, what we have is a document from GCDO, which is which is General Conference and division officers. And so, anyways, this document is some recommendations. And these recommendations are, as you put it, as the title of this video is, to stop the slippage. That's, I should be very clear. The slippage is Ted Wilson's language, not yours. But anyways, it's up there. That's the goal, is to stop the slippage. And so anyways, so this is a strategy of how to do that. And it's really broken down into just a few pieces. We need to publish more books. And we need to do some videos online, which is kind of a novel strategy. It's nice to see the church kind of waking up that people are on the internet. And then of course we need to. This is the controversial one that was alluded to there in early on, and I think in that first comment in the video, that this is the one that is controversial to people, and that how do we supervise our theological education at the General Conference schools? Talk about Andrews, IS, I think AUA, right, is the third one. So that's the controversial one. How do we supervise this? Now, the reason for this, why does Ted think that there's slippage in the church? Okay, so for the past 10 years, there have been, actually it was David Trim, you saw him there at the end, has been leading these global church membership surveys. Huge surveys, as he pointed out there, which is fantastic, right? Because sometimes you get like 10 people in the location and you're like, well, how much does this represent these people? Huge surveys. And so we can now compare the answers over time, over 10 years now, and they'll keep doing them, and we'll keep watching these trends. But anyways, the last report from last year is almost 200 pages of just questions and the results of these questions being asked, and it's really fascinating. Just really, I mean, if you're like really into the statistics, you're a numbers guy, you want to try to understand trends in the Adventist church, these reports really are helpful in trying to figure that out. So, as I said, they found some theological areas where it seems that the trend is going away from what the church is teaching and has traditionally taught. And so naturally, this is what they're trying to plug this hole. They're trying to stop this slippage. So that's kind of the gist of it. That's what this document is trying to do. And it's based on these global church membership surveys.
And when Ted, and thanks for pointing out that wasn't my term. Sometimes people have suggested I'm being too confrontational with the terms, but that is what Ted called it. And the guy after him on that little clip we watched says it many times. To what point from are they suggesting we are slipping?
Okay, so there's a number of areas, and this is a really interesting thing. One of them is belief in Ellen White as a prophet is slipping. The investigative judgment is listed as something that's slipping. I know that's going to be a real shocker to you and your audience. How did that happen?
Focus on that a little bit.
Well, this is the first time hearing about that. Trinity, six-day creation, state of the dead. You know, there's that was kind of the big shocker. I remember when Dr. Trim made his presentation last autumn, I think it was, when he talked about that, the number of Adventists who think that it's like a third of the 150,000 people who took this survey said that they believe the dead are in heaven.
Wow, that's big.
It's incredible. So
wow,
the thing that I don't quite understand here, and maybe this is where I get myself in trouble, is how exactly slippage is being defined. All right. So I think you see it. You see what they're talking about most clearly when we're talking about Ellen White being a prophet. In 2013, 76% of members embraced Ellen White as a prophet wholeheartedly. 2018, 5 years later, that went from 76 to 72%. In 2023, 5 years after that, it went down to 70%. So dropping about 6%, and that's consistent. You know, it's consistently going lower over 10 years. All right, so you can get an idea. They see that and they're like, what do we do about this? How do we solve this? In other areas, I don't fully understand, because you take the investigative judgment, which they identify as an area of slippage, it actually went up 2%. in the last 5 years. Like more people believe in the investigative judgment. It's only 2%, it's not a huge number, but I don't understand why that is considered an area of slippage when it's going in the right direction as far as they're concerned. So not all the numbers are actually going down. I mean, six-day creation is also up 1% over the last 10 years in terms of people who agree that the world was created in 6 days. The State of the Dead one is just a huge puzzle because it's actually gone up 5% that people believe the dead are dead. And yet at the same time, when asked a different way, are the dead in heaven? A third of them will say yes. So clearly there's some confusion there because 92% are saying the dead are dead, but yet when asked in a different
Maybe
way,
they mean in
a third of
heaven,
them
but
are
in
saying the
soul
dead are in
sleep
heaven.
in heaven.
Yeah, that's the real hard thing about
Yeah,
poll
exactly.
questions, right? Because you wonder, like, well, I mean, you're talking about global church membership. How did they understand the question in their language? Is there a nuance that maybe, that just didn't get picked up in here in how we're
Maybe they should
translating
have
these
asked,
results?
but are the dead walking around in heaven? Are they experiencing
Yeah,
heaven?
something like that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, something like that. So, sometimes you can see the numbers, you can see the results, but you don't know why they are that way. And so, you might try and understand that. If this was a smaller survey, you might do a follow-up with the same people and say, hold on, how did you understand this question? But you can't when you're talking about 150,000 people. I don't even know if they know the names of the people who took the survey, right? It might just be a random sampling, and they may not be able to follow up with them. So, what do you do? So they just look at this and they're alarmed by it, and so let's try and fix it.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. But either way, like for example, when the compliance document became policy, they're kind of addressing all the same things except women's ordination. I think they tried to garner more teeth on the policy, as you know, with six
Yeah.
unions, or 4 of them being warned, and 2 almost getting the next level of action against them nearly occurred. But so all 6 were
Yeah.
warned that they needed in 1 year to
Yeah.
return to the church's policy on women's ordination.
Yeah.
But then COVID hit. Last autumn council,
Mhm.
I listened to the whole thing. I couldn't find any reference to the
Yep.
6 warned unions. And I
Yep.
think this is Ted having another approach from a different angle to gain more, these are my words, not yours, more control again, to allow the church to comply in these other areas where the audience is a little bit softer and happier to agree.
So I definitely think you're right to situate this in terms of a larger context. This isn't just the result of a survey. Obviously, there's an intuition, or maybe there's other evidences in their minds that the church is not where it should be, and we're going away from our true, historic, authentic, orthodox, whatever Adventist past. Right? That's long been a complaint for. I mean, I think like the October 23, 1844 is when Adventists started complaining that we've lost sight of our past truths. Like it doesn't take long before you start thinking we've drifted from where we should
Yeah.
be.
Well,
Yeah, but that obviously that's been the project, is to try to fix that.
and that was my other thought I wanted your opinion on, or ideas or comments. When they say slippage, from what time period are we slipping? Like when is this
Yeah.
time period that had it all together within the Adventist Church? You're a historian, so you've studied the history, and your podcast starts from ground zero, 1844. And again, by the way,
Yeah.
I'm talking to Matthew Lucio, and he's got an incredible podcast. I'll just quickly bring it up onto the screen. If you're watching, go and subscribe or start listening to Adventist History Podcast. But yeah, at what point do you think Ted is saying we're slipping from?
That's a good question. And I don't even know if there's a date that he has in mind. I think it's mainly the distinctive doctrines those, and for those who are watching who may not be as familiar with Adventism, distinctives usually refer to, spirit of prophecy, state of the dead, hell, the things that make that Adventists kind of differ with the larger Christian world on. But what's interesting to me are the things that are not considered slippage. Like, the report obviously is not exhaustive. It doesn't lay out all the areas that the leaders are concerned about, but it certainly leaves out one, and that's regarding salvation. This was a huge one to me. In 2018, in the same survey, 81% said that salvation is through Jesus alone. 81%. In 2023, that dropped to 79%. Like, why is that not an example of slippage? Why is that not just as alarming? I mean, it should be the most alarming thing, right?
That should be the main one that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. So, and that may be, okay, fine, that's 2%. It's not a big deal. But in the other questions they asked about salvation, one of the questions the people were asked is, to receive grace, I must live by God's rules. 53% agreed with that.
Yeah.
That we have to live by God's rules in order to receive grace.
Interesting. Yeah.
53%.
That's slippage when connected to aligned to the Bible teaching, but it may not be slippage when aligned to the Adventist teaching.
Right. Why is it not of the utmost concern that more than half the church believes we have to earn grace?
Well, that, to me, that almost goes without saying.
Yeah. There's another question that is, Adventist health standards make salvation more likely. 48% agreed with that. Another one was, following the health message ensures my salvation. 44% agreed with that. I mean, again, these are consistent results.
Yeah.
Okay, the State of the Dead one is weird because you had, in the 90s that agreed with the traditional teaching, and then 33% somehow went the other way. That might be a misunderstanding, as I said, but these salvation ones are consistent.
Yeah, but they're quite damning, aren't they? If that concept, the 50% one, what was it again?
That to receive God's grace, I must live by God's rules.
To me, that indicates that they are indeed following Adventist core doctrine. So it's not slippage. It's
I see. Yeah. Yeah, it's expected, unfortunately. But again, I guess to me, it's just that should be the red light going off in the general conference building.
Yes,
that's the problem. I'm not saying the other things are not, I guess, important, but that, to me, you're quibbling over Ellen White dropping from 76 to 70%. Okay, but the more important thing is people's salvation.
Yeah. Wow.
So.
Boy. That's a damning result on so many layers, at so many levels. Another interesting point that I was watching some of David Trim's previous and recent work on the numbers of people leaving the Adventist Church, and then I watched the interview with Ty Gibson. So I think the apostasy rate is now upward of 60+%. Is that not apostasy, but people leaving the church? Is it beyond 60%? Is it, or is it still around 50?
Yeah, it's in the 40s, last I understood, and that was from last fall.
So let's say it's quite large, and the thing that Ty Gibson was highlighting, I don't know if you saw the interview with him on that podcast, forgotten the title of it.
Was it Seeking What They Sought?
Seeking What They Sought. And he suggested of the 25 million Adventist names on the books, that only about 6 million are actively going to church and participating in the church, and that is in decline as well. So is Ted Wilson seeing a loss of numbers and wanting to address that? And he is seeing that maybe at an educational level, the church is being let down by the academics and the scholars, and that this is a way to shore up controlling what they teach the young people and the church themselves. Is he addressing
Yeah.
this near 50%, out the door?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about him in particular, but I do know that church leaders are extremely aware of this dropout rate. I mean, I know the NAD here talks about it a bunch. I mean, they're very aware of it. The thing is that statistic is not true
Yeah.
everywhere, right? It's and I mean, I should say this: people people are leaving some divisions more than others. If that makes
Yeah.
sense. Usually in the kind of the English speaking, postmodern, post Christian kind of West is where we're seeing the most, right?
Yeah, and is there
And so yeah,
Sorry,
basically,
go ahead. Go
uh huh.
ahead. I was
No,
just
no,
gonna
no.
say,
Oh,
and
good. Go ahead.
in those areas, aren't they, like, funding 20% of the whole of the church denomination in many ways? The
Yeah.
though
I
and
mean,
if the people are leaving and the baby boomers are starting to retire and die out, could there be a
yeah.
substantial problem with money in the next 5 to 10 years as well?
Mm,
'Cause if
perhaps
you have
so basically,
membership stability in other parts of
yeah,
the world, but dying in the West, uh, then
yeah,
your funds are gonna go down and there's warning signs that that is happening. If they
yeah.
aren't getting the funding, it doesn't matter if you've got the numbers in the rest of the world.
Sure,
Is that a
that's true.
concern, do you think, that they're trying
So
to address?
it's definitely a concern. So the NAD contributes about 45 to 50% of global tithe.
Wow.
And we are here in the NAD are kind of drawing down from that because the NAD used to pay a larger share of tithe to the General Conference than the rest of the world divisions. And so the mantra the last few years has been going to tithe parity. We want to pay the same percentage that everybody else
Mm,
pays. So, I mean, I don't think that the donations from the NAD have really gone down. That's been the really surprising thing, I think, overall. People expected donations to go down there in COVID. They didn't.
mm,
Uh, one would think that at some point this will happen. But the question is whether the other divisions that are emerging, South America, Africa, and so forth, will their donations increase sufficient to cover whatever it is that Europe and SPD and NAD, maybe aren't giving as much. I don't know. It's hard to say what will happen, but one would think along the lines that you're suggesting here that as the boomers kind
mm,
of step back,
mm.
we're going to have a
Yeah.
problem. But we haven't had it yet.
No, no. Um Yeah, but I wonder if that is fueling this because if it appears that those who support and I'm just saying Ted Wilson almost as a metaphor for this whole push,
Yeah.
though I actually kind of can totally understand and even begrudgingly respect that he's trying to make it really clear. If the leaders are
Yeah.
clear, those who want to push back have a better understanding of what to disagree with or not. So otherwise it's just all nebulous. Um,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
if he sees this as a numbers game, the reality is the people outside of the SPD and Europe and the North America division, they align way more with the Ted Wilson Adventism. I called it real Adventism the other day, and that's what's caused my latest round of but
Yeah.
we're an
Well done.
Adventist. We're Adventists too, and I know that. You got my humor. A lot of people didn't, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
I get you.
essentially, those that are of a more traditional kind of Adventist um, brokerage, they love what Ted's doing, and potentially the church is
Sure.
growing in these other areas because of Ted Wilson's initiatives. And you heard the people speaking in the clip what we just played. They're super supportive of what he's doing. So maybe by lifting those numbers, he's going to be able to cover the shortfall in income as the others retire and die
Well,
off or leave.
maybe. I mean, I think though we should look at a little bit more carefully at what this document is
Yes.
actually trying to do. Okay, so like the first one is a bunch of books. That's the first thing, and of course maybe this is a coincidence, but the first book is on Ellen White and how to interpret Ellen White. This is going to be a college textbook that they want to have written. The second book is on scripture, after we have the Ellen White book. I don't know that these are any kind of order, but
Well,
you
the
think
statistics would
anyways,
indicate
just
they
for
are.
optics. Yeah. So just for optics, maybe do the biblical hermeneutics book first. Anyways, so so the first one, Ellen White's a college textbook and how to I guess to better appreciate her. Second one's on sola scriptura. And I don't know exactly what any of these are going to be about, what they're going to say, but that's not a bad topic to write a book on. You know what I mean? And the third book they mentioned was was about the Trinity, which again, if this is in support of the Trinity, again, so I it's not that all of these areas are like really just sticking a finger in a wound. Some of them may actually be very helpful books. I don't know. I mean, we're not going to know until they come out, but Darkcom Volume 8.
Yeah.
Like everything is getting rebooted these days. Batman from 1989 might as well reboot Darkcom too.
Yeah.
And
it needs a refresher.
Give it. That's right.
Yeah. What is this document called? I mean, before I had the compliance document, I could always refer to it and gather around it. I couldn't find it online. I don't know where it is. I don't know if you can send me a link. I can.
Oh yeah, I can send you a link.
I've tried for a year to find the actual. Here are the 6 compliant document, policies. Because I think there's 6, isn't there?
Yeah.
So once you've done that, what's this one called?
Let's see here. So at the top, it just says recommendations from special GCDO recommendation steering committee.
Right. He did have a little name who
They're
mentioned
onto you.
there, though. There was a little. Yeah, they're onto me. They don't want to make it too clear.
Yeah. No, they don't want to make it memorable or
that I can latch my teeth on.
That's right. So they're just going to bury it with the legalese for you. But anyways, so they got these books. They want to do Bible conferences on Zoom where they get some scholars together and talk. And I have no idea if comments are going to be turned off, but
probably,
I can't imagine that would go well. Just Adventism is in a mood right now, and if the scholars are going to show up, and the BRI scholars in particular are going to show up, and so will some people with some questions, and so I mean, again, these are not all bad recommendations. I guess that's what I'm just trying to say. They're not, you see what they're trying to do, and I think the Trinity one is the most interesting to me because, in that global church membership survey, 1% said that they either didn't believe in the Trinity or had problems with it.
Wow.
Okay. Then 1%. And in this list are 3 volumes on the Trinity. So I don't know. Is the survey accurate? Is it really only 1%? If it is 1%, why are we writing 3 books on this subject?
This is why I think it's more the compliance document Mark II, because it's just not making sense to address the stats the way they are. When you look closely at everything that people have said there, they all lean back to the compliance document minus women's ordination. I don't think women's ordination comes up anywhere in it this time. They got such a flack about it, they've pulled back.
Yeah, no, it doesn't come up at all, and that's not what this one is about. This is a different battle for a different day.
Yeah, or the same battle with a more obscure name and leaving off some of the keynotes. Did you?
Well, yeah, but I think.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, unlike the compliance stuff, there's really no teeth on this document.
Right.
I mean, the most controversial part is that we need somebody at the division, each division, to ensure that our universities are teaching Adventist doctrine or whatever, and the division's going to lean on the union, the union's going to lean on the university. But there's nothing in here about, well, if they're found to be out of compliance, then this is what we're going to do. There's no consequences. And it depends entirely on cooperation between different levels of the church, which, as we've seen with women's ordination, not all levels of the church are willing to cooperate on some of these issues with other levels. So it's hard to say what's really going to happen with. They also want on the board. Well, these boards are really big. What's one more member going to do to sway things? I don't know. So I think it is different from the compliance
Okay.
documents in the
Yeah.
sense that it doesn't have any teeth.
Yeah. Just as a slightly not different topic, but do you know the guys that, in that moment where the Danish guy and the Norwegian guy, and I think even Jan Paulsen in tears was like, this is a mistake to be going ahead with this at the Autumn Council, I think 2019. Do you know some of those guys from those unions that spoke up, and has there been any follow-up with them? Have you spoken to them? Are they still fearing that they haven't reversed their commissioning process? I think didn't the Norwegian union just commission everybody, women and men? Wasn't that their kind of little twist on how to
I think
fight back?
that's basically right. It's been a long time since I've really even thought about this compliance committee situation. I have not heard anything about it.
Yeah, I think they've
I
just hoped
imagine
it would disappear. Yeah.
Yeah, and
But
it
just out
very
of
well
interest,
might.
do you know those guys at all in conversation? Have you had any feedback, if you don't know them, of how has it just slipped off their radar as well?
Yeah. Peter, if the Adventist Church is an aquarium, I'm a goldfish. I'm not swimming with the whales, with the dolphins.
Mate, you're too hard on yourself. You run probably one of the biggest podcasts on as far as Adventism goes. Yours is one of the biggest podcasts on the planet. So I think that your perspective is one to be listened to and reckoned with. And you should have your finger on the pulse of the Norwegian
I should, shouldn't
compliance
I?
document issues.
Yeah, I'm just going to use all that podcast money and just fly to Norway and find out what's really going on in person.
Oh yeah,
What's that Nordic country with those canned fish that smell so bad they make people throw up? I hope that's not Norway.
I have not heard of that.
There's videos on YouTube. You can
Really?
entertain yourself for a long time. Yeah, some got sent to Ukraine, and they had some Ukrainian soldiers opening it during the happier days of the war.
That might be a weapon.
Yeah, it really is. They should throw it to the Russians. But anyways, I'm a guppy. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that about the podcast and all that, but I deal with it's safer to be in history. Let's just put them in the present. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. I as I said, I'm interviewing Denny 14, Dr. Denny 14 on Thursday my time, Wednesday evening your guys' time at some point, different time. Those watching just need to check the ads for that. And I was listening to a bit of his material on the Butler book. In fact, I listened to 2.5 hour kind of ATT Sabbath school session where he presented it, and there was a Q&A. And I love that he's just presenting this stuff, and people say, well, what's your interpretation of that? And there's areas that he will give an interpretation, and other areas he goes, look, the jury's out on this one. But it makes for a fascinating observation, and I've always known that you're a historian first, and so your perspective is that kind of way more factual in many ways, and by giving that information out there, people can come to their own conclusions, and I think that's so healthy to do that.
Yes, I think it's the only proper way to do this.
Yeah.
I will say this though about current events. There are many times I think to myself, I really can't wait to read these guys' emails in 40 years.
I know.
I'll retire. We'll be back to this. We'll be back to this time period.
Have you got some stuff on Butler in your podcast?
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to remember.
That was a long time ago, though. That was around 1888.
So I would have listened to those already because I've listened to all
You
your
yes,
early
yeah,
and medium. Yeah, okay. Well, I'll go back to that.
yeah.
And
But
listening to Denny Fortin's perspectives on it, it's all the letters, the backwards and forwards, and I didn't realize what a
yeah,
clan was divided there.
hmm
There was the James White
yes,
and Ellen family, and then there was this. What
yeah.
was the name of they were called? The something clan, and it was all the Kellogg's and the Butlers. They're all intermarrying and a very powerful force within
Oh,
the church. I've got a
yeah.
mental blank.
So
They
yeah,
all
I
lived
mean, I
in a
think
similar area, but anyway,
uh,
yeah, it's fascinating,
I
fascinating.
I did cover Butler, but that was a long time ago. This is
Mm,
my 10th year of doing this
it's
podcast.
amazing, yeah.
And so, when I did Butler, it was probably 7 years ago or so, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I need to read his book, or finish reading his book, I should say, and go
yeah.
back and update season 1. That's my goal. So season 1 will get a lot
Yeah,
better because I've learned a
and
lot in
a
10
lot
years,
more, yeah,
and so
yeah.
we'll go back and do that.
Yeah, I've learned a lot doing these interviews as well, and, even though sometimes controversial, I think, it's been such a fascinating journey. And
Yes.
we are, season 8, episode 1. I'm hoping to kick off this season with interviewing a few scholars, and as I said, we've got Michael Campbell next week, interviewing you
Yeah.
today, Danny Fortin later in the week. I'm hoping to chase up Gil Valentine, who we've kind of liaised
Oh,
occasionally. But when I
yeah.
read his material and, listen to your podcast, it's just absolutely a fascinating history. Adventism cannot take your eyes off it kind of history. That do you ever sit there and go, my goodness, this, like when you're talking about letters there, you just go, oh wow, this
Yeah,
guy said this to this, and this was happening on the
yeah,
main stage, and look what was going on behind the
yeah.
scenes.
That's exactly the feeling. Man, a lot has happened in 200 years. I mean, it's
Mm,
incredible how much, like, the variety of stories you have,
yes.
that you can draw from. We are living, I think, in the golden age of Adventist history,
Yes.
in the sense of the people writing about Adventist history now, or podcasting about it, or
Yeah.
making videos or whatever. Like, we have the best stuff that any generation has ever had.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a
You know,
great time to be I putting Adventism under the spotlight. I don't mean in a sense
yeah,
of grilling, but in a sense of,
yeah,
wow, look what we can see now that we couldn't have seen even 20 years ago,
yeah,
or at the
absolutely.
start of your
And it's
podcast, that what in the
right.
10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so much. And it's a manageable slice of history. Because I think if we were like, "Oh, we're gonna do a podcast on, English history or something," you're spanning a millennium, people are like, "Oh, that's just so much. There's no way I'm
Yeah.
ever gonna get enough out of that." But with Adventist history, it's 200 years. I mean,
Yeah.
we can get through it.
That's
You
right.
can
We
binge
yeah.
this thing in a month.
And
So
there's more drama in that than in that
yeah, there
200
really
years
is. Yeah.
than 200 years of Dallas, Texas kind of, style TV shows.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. There really
it
is.
it's fascinating. It's way more interesting than Baptists and Episcopalians and Anglicans and,
I'm You
yeah.
know what? I originally thought to myself, Adventist history, when I first started, I didn't know anything about it. I just had a George Knight book, and that's kind of was my source to begin with.
Mm,
And I thought, you know what, this won't take long, and I'm going to get to Ellen White's death, and I'm going to stop because I have no idea what happened after her death, and then I'm going to go do Mormon history. That was my
yes. I think you
that
even
was my
said
palate
something along
cleanser.
those lines in the early
Yeah,
days.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, we
Yeah.
got a comment here. I wanted
Look,
to.
just before you come to that, what I'm gonna
Yep.
do is the spa guy's here. I have to just quickly go out and let him in. We're gonna have a 5-minute break, and then we'll spend the next half
Oh,
of our conversation exploring the comments and statements made, over there.
awesome.
They've been pouring in. So maybe have a little look down them, and any ones that you want to address, we'll systematically go through them. And,
Okay.
I thought if you're okay with that, viewers like a little bit of a break if we're having a bit of a longer show. So, that gives me a chance to quickly see the spa guy, try and get it fixed up for my daughters
All
to
right.
enjoy. It's at one of those 5'5" swim spas. It's like a little swimming pool for
Oh,
them. They're
nice.
only 10 and 11. So,
Yeah.
he's here, and it's been taking a month to get him, and he can only come today. So anyway,
Of
so
course.
we'll be
Bring them on the podcast.
I'll ask him. I'll ask him if he'd like. I'll say, come and poke your head in and see what all the fuss is about.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I'll ask him, definitely. So when we come back, everyone, we're going to get right into some of the questions. If you're watching and you've got a question, what an opportunity to ask Matthew. So away you go. Start thinking, start typing away. We'll be back in 5.
You love me so much more than I could ever know. Your love is deeper than this world will ever show. And all of life's beauty shines around this moment now. The sky and the cliffs, they seem to change my life somehow. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, I will never be the same, never be the same ever again. Well, here I am waiting, Lord, my life is just for you. Please unfold all the plans that you would have me do. And if all the world's just a breath and nothing's here to stay, and all of the love we feel will save us anyway. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, I will never be the same, will never be the same ever again. You love me so much more than I could ever know. Your love is deeper than this world will ever show. And all of life's beauty shines around this moment now. The sky and the cliffs, they seem to change my life somehow. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, 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 I will never be the same, never be the same ever again. Here I am waiting, Lord, my life is just for you. Please unfold all the plans that you would have me do. And if all the world's just a breath and nothing's here to stay, then all of the love we feel will save us anyway. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, I will never be the same, will never be the same ever again.
On there, and we're back.
Woo! How'd it
And
go?
Spa Guy won't come on. He's a little bit grumpy because he cannot work out what's wrong with the spa. So anyway, my girls are away for a day or two, so hopefully it's all going when they get back. Cross
Yeah.
fingers.
Well,
Okay, look.
if it's not, my girls will come over and help.
Yeah. How old are your daughters again?
Oh, 9 and 5.
Yeah, okay. Well, no, I've got a 10-year-old, so not too far apart there.
No,
Just a little bit older than you, that's all.
just a little.
Now, let's go to some of these questions. I'm talking to Matthew, Lucio, and many of you already know Matthew and have enjoyed. This is your third or fourth time on the show?
Third
time.
I think, yeah.
And Matthew is employed by the church, about to go and work for the conference office. Whereabouts? Which conference?
Oh, Illinois Conference.
Illinois Conference.
Yeah.
And he runs Adventist History Podcast. Highly recommend people go and sign up for that. Let's look at some of these questions. Here's Peter Mashenko. Some of these are a while back, but he is saying, are they suggesting that scientists must be screened for what they feel science should be rather than follow evidence where it leads, which is what science is about? Question mark.
That may be what science is about, but it's not what parochial education is about. You know, you're free, of course. If you want to be a scientist, you study whatever you want to do. But if you want to teach science, there are in a confessional institution, whether that's if you're in a Jewish school, you're expected to teach. My kids go to a Jewish school, by the way, to a Hebrew school. And we respect the fact that they're not allowed to proselytize. They're not allowed to even talk about Jesus there.
Right.
We respect that. It's a Hebrew school. And an Adventist school, you're going to expect people to teach Adventist stuff. I mean, if they want to go be a scientist and study whatever they want, of course they can go do that. But
it's interesting when people are born into a faith. That's when I struggle with these kind of strict outlines and guidelines. Like if you could only decide to be an Adventist or when you're 25 plus, and you weren't allowed to hear anything about it up till then, I'd kind of be fine with it, because then you go, well, this is what it is. But sadly, there's people born into the church. I know a guy who taught recently down for years at the local Avondale University, and scientists fully believes in, a way older Earth than 6,000 years,
Yeah,
and he just can't commit his conscience to not saying otherwise. So
right.
it's an interesting phenomenon where you go, yeah, I can understand and respect someone wanting to hedge up their religion and not damage their key doctrines, but how do you allow for people being born into it to allow to have freedom of expression? And sadly, a lot of the young people are leaving because they feel that they haven't got that freedom of expression.
Yeah, I think that's a whole episode in and of itself. Why do people leave the Adventist church?
Mm.
I think this is a hard topic, because it's kind of like people who get married at 18. You think to yourself, boy, you never really had time to kind of figure out who you are and to date and figure out what you like
Mm.
and yet some of those people have lifelong marriages that they seem perfectly content, right? And you might look at that and say, that may not be what I think is the ideal. I think you should kind of grow up before you make a
Mm.
commitment like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But some people pull it off and
It's
seem
a pity
happy.
that, the thing I loved about the Jan Paulson era, who I think himself had some quite, conservative traditional views. He was open to this notion of a diverse church. And one thing,
Yeah.
I'm not speaking in support or against Catholics, but they have orders in their church,
Yeah.
so you can,
Yeah.
if you believe in evolution with a slightly charismatic style of worship, then they've got that order, and it's kind of all these orders fit within the larger body and are all accepted. It's the Adventists should maybe follow that that Catholic approach. By the way, that just makes me think
Yes, we need,
when sorry, go.
uh-huh.
What did
No,
you
no,
say there?
I was just gonna say, when people jump on Patreon to support my podcast, we have the Order of J. Ann Andrews, the Order of Joseph Bates, the Order of Ellen White. So
You're starting the idea. Good.
yes,
Yeah. And just when it just reminded me, speaking about the Catholics, when Grenville Kent made that comment I read out earlier, kind of putting me down a bit there. I don't care if if all Adventist leaders are men. I don't care if they're all
Mhm.
women. I don't care if they're all gay. I don't care if there's a representation of every single kind of human in there. I don't care about that. I care about the opportunity. And so if a woman is not allowed to be a certain top level, like an Adventist woman in this part of
Mhm.
the world cannot be president of the SPD because she's a woman. That's essentially what it
Mhm.
is. So
Mhm.
I don't care if a woman is a president or not. I don't care.
Yeah, I
I
understand.
just care. I don't want equity, though there are good grounds for equity in certain situations, but I think the equal opportunity is what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Grenville sent a picture of Jesus at the Last Supper, and of course, it's just all men. Who cares?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
care. That doesn't mean I would leave
Yeah,
my faith in that regard.
certainly.
But if Jesus was kind of saying, anyway, that's a bit off topic. So back on topic, Peter Mashenko, and I think we have answered this, but it doesn't hurt to just summarize it. The comments are interesting, but we haven't been presented yet with what the recommendations actually are yet. So I think we did go over that. But can you just outline them again? What were those recommendations specifically? I think you had them listed there.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah,
Sorry, you're freezing up there. So let's.
and books. Oh
Sorry,
no.
we're just gonna have to go over that again. I've just gotta wait till you've got an orange light showing up on the reception your end. So we might, you might have to just leave. If you can still hear me, just leave the room and come back in, and I think that will fix up that problem. So if you can hear me, just leave the room, vacate the premises, leave the building, and come back in, and that sometimes fixes that problem. Oh, good. So Matthew can hear me, but he's just going to reboot his end, and I think that will fix it. Yeah, that
Okay.
looks good again. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So, yeah, just list those in case we didn't cover them clearly.
Yeah. So again, three areas of emphasis here. One is having Bible conferences on Zoom, so that would be available, I guess, for anyone to watch, and they'd make presentations and things like that. Second is books and media. We didn't talk as much about the media, but we talked about some of the books that they're going to be publishing. And then third, of course, is the more controversial. How do we supervise the education of our pastors? There's a lot there that could be said, I think, namely the assumption we need that it's our educational in particular. Like if we
Sorry, it's freezing up again. I'm just going to try and move my satellite a bit closer as well, and you might need to leave the room and come back in, and I'll just quickly move my satellite. So by satellite I mean my whatever Wi-Fi booster disk. That's what it is. So yeah, we'll just get Matthew back in a moment. And thanks for getting us to clarify that, Peter Mashenko. I think it's important just to go over that again, what the key points are of this document. And Matthew is just outlining that. And he will be back in a minute. I'm going to also ask him to share what are the errors. So he's just outlined. So I've got him back, but only audio. So I'm going to ask him if he can outline what some of the actual errors are. So he's just talked about some of the things they're going to address systematically, and we're just going to see if he can then also outline the errors. While we're waiting, don't forget, I've got tomorrow I'm going to be on Arthur and Teresa Beam's podcast. I'm going to be a guest on their show, and I'm going to try and make it that we go live here as well. And I think that's going to be 12:30 tomorrow. The times will be on our Facebook wall, and then I've got Denny 14 on Thursday Australian time, and that's Wednesday. I'm not sure of the exact time. So we're just trying to get Matthew back on. He's just written to me and his internet went down, so he's just booting up again. So I'll just write back to him. So he's just going to reboot and then come back in with us. So there's some great questions going on here. Don't forget, if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by clicking the QR code up here. Not clicking it, but scanning it. And also going to paypal.me/Peter Dixon Music. That I don't do that much music anymore. Since lockdown, I kind of shifted a lot of my focus and my energy. And if you would prefer to just help in a different way other than financially, just lean forward and click the like button in Facebook or on YouTube. Really helps. You'd be amazed, the algorithms that I often talk about. And yeah, I'd really appreciate that. So also, if you'd like to join my spin-off group, Voice Life Fellowship, where I restrict the presenters to only sharing the gospel from the 4 gospels. So come and check that out. Just look Voice Life Fellowship on Facebook, answer a couple of questions. And Matthew is trying to log in again. We will persist. So you can keep clicking your 10-second forward there, Peter Mashenko, if you're watching this later. And and not have to hear me prattling on. So I think here we go. No, we've still got Matthew having trouble with no video feed. So yeah, just chat amongst yourselves for a moment. On Thursday, when I interviewed Dr. Denny 14, Fortin, we're going to be chatting about his new book on Butler, who was the president of the GC. I think he was the next one after James White, and he was there during the whole 1888 stuff, and it was a very, very interesting and turbulent time. So I listened to a 2.5 hour Adventist Today Sabbath School session, which was only maybe last weekend or the weekend before, and it was fascinating. We're going to go deep. Okay, when I chat to him on Thursday, my time, Wednesday, your time. So Matthew is trying again. We're getting no video feed. Matthew, I don't know if you can hear me. I'm going to send you a different link. So let's just try that. And we're just going to generate that. Okay. Here's a new link, Matthew. And let's see if that works any better. And boy, there's a lot of you are still watching. Sometimes when there's these kind of pauses, people disappear and go and do stuff, but we've still got a very healthy audience. And I think we are back. I regenerated another link. I think that's the one you've just clicked.
Yes.
Oh, good. Oh, that's nice and clear. We are back. So we are having an interesting discussion here with some of these questions. You just outlined, some of it was a bit intermittent. So maybe just quickly re-outline what is this document, and also what are the errors that they are alluding to that they want to stop the slippage.
I think the GC has pulled my internet plug, and so I'm not allowed to talk about the document anymore.
Yeah. If you mention the word document or Ted Wilson, we're going to have problems again.
Yeah. So I'm going to refer to it as the page. Anyway, so okay. The slippage, some areas that they were concerned about, just to recap for those who weren't here for hour number one. That is, they were concerned about survey results showing that fewer Adventists are believing in some distinctive doctrines, like Ellen White in her prophetic role. The State of the Dead was another big one. Sanctuary, or the investigative judgment, was another big one. So they had 3 courses of action here. One, have global Bible conferences on Zoom with scholars. Number 2 is to produce videos and books on these subjects. And number 3 was supervise the theological education of our future pastors and whatnot.
And that's to try and educate both the members of the church and the leadership and the pastors and the scholars and academics, I imagine.
Yeah. I mean, the assumption is if we can train our future pastors and scholars, we can make sure they're getting the right ideas at school, then they'll go on to train our lay members. I don't know that it works exactly like that. I think that's how we all think it works. When we get to seminary and we learn all these theological things, and then you get into the church and then you realize nobody cares.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, you want to have conversations with people about the Trinity or about whatever. Nobody really cares. I mean, they really don't. They have lives, they have jobs, they have families, they have interests. They're watching videos on YouTube from somebody else. The pastor is not the primary source for people's theological education. I'm just going to put it that way. So that I remain a little bit skeptical on that last point of how effective, even if they were able to pull that off and
Mm,
ensure that every single future theologian and pastor is receiving this whatever
training.
Elder Wilson wants us to learn.
Mm,
I don't know that it would make a whole lot of difference. At
mm,
least here, I can't speak for the rest of the world.
That's an interesting thought. And Bill Cork has replied to Peter's comment about the science. So they want him to kind of, if you believe in an Earth that's older than 10,000 years, we don't want to employ you, kind of thing. And he's saying, Peter, that's what they want:
Yeah.
to impose a fundamentalist cage around scientists to define what they can find and what they can't. But that's going to be
Well,
tough for some of the scientists because adaptation at the very least is very demonstrable in the scientific world.
yeah, I mean, you can find whatever you want. You just can't teach it.
Yeah. I remember in the early 90s, I was a school teacher at the high school up here at Avondale, and special ed teacher. That's not PE special education. That was special ed, teaching kids with learning problems and stuff, which I loved. But we did get a fax from the GC saying if we didn't agree with the 27 fundamentals back then, that we should resign. So
Yeah.
that's a push. That's 30 years ago. So it's been an ongoing conversation. And I think a lot of people, say, "Oh, why are you still banging on about it?" Well, I think people are banging on about it because it's never really been addressed. So at least Ted Wilson is bringing it to a head in many ways.
Yeah.
Mark Anthony has written, "Is the church after truth or making the echo chamber more soundproof?"
Yeah.
And feel free to comment on any of these. GD has written a lot of Ellen G. White quoting, but no Bible. That was interesting. In that whole
Oh, yeah.
20 minutes we watched, there was no biblical quotes.
Well, that's true. I think it's presumed that the church has a biblical position on every topic that it takes a stand on, right?
Mm,
That's the assumption. There's no need to reprove that in their minds.
mm. GD has
But
also
yeah,
said, "Where are our resident SDA apologists that, usually they're in the feed distracting everybody away from the
yeah,
topic?" Well, they're not here today because they know that normally the show is Wednesday and Thursday, or
look at
Tuesday and
that.
Wednesday your time.
Peter is
Um,
applying his Jesuitical training to change the day that he goes live to fool his adversaries. Well done.
And then, we won't tell them we do Tuesday as well.
Yeah.
Someone on Facebook has written, "This method of scientific assessment is as old as Roman Catholic Church's approach to Galileo's scientific discoveries." So that won't bode well down the track, I don't think.
Yeah.
And Peter Mashenko writes, acknowledgement that we are a movement and not a church. Yeah, one of the ladies did say that, didn't she? She said, "We're not a church." This would suggest that we can
Yeah.
move into new areas of belief and understanding rather than be locked down as a power-structured and locked-down church. You've mentioned, I think, in our past interviews that you see a bit of hope in the church, that things will kind of once
Yeah.
more return to, not sure what, but that that will return to a little bit more of a balanced
Well, look,
institution.
I have a vested interest in as much drama happening as possible because I get to cover it later in a future episode. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. You're
but on
almost
a
waiting
personal level,
for 30 years
yeah,
to look back at
that's
this.
right. That's right.
Boy, that's
That's right.
gonna be interesting, yeah.
But on a personal level, yeah, I don't think things are nearly as bad as people think. I look at this in American politics. Like we get so worked up about this guy or that guy. In the end, we still go bomb people around the world. We still fund our
Mm.
social security and these sort of things. I'm not saying it doesn't matter at all. I'm just saying I think sometimes we um, kind of react more strongly at a new leader or whatever and what they're doing, and we realize it really usually does not make a difference in the lives of the vast majority of people.
Again, in the Jan Paulsen era, I felt I could speak up and not be shut down.
Yeah.
What concerns me is not really what they're talking about, or the IJ, or the Trinity, or any of that stuff. Like
Yeah.
you say, most people just go what over their head, and they get back to watching Netflix.
Yeah.
But for me, the issue is that how fascinating that you can't, if you're an employee, other than people like you and Michael and Denny, most will not speak publicly for fear of recrimination. That's what worries me more than anything.
Yeah.
One of Marlon Thorne, I think I said Marion before. I need new glasses. Sorry, Marlon, if I called you Marion. COVID and the emergence of YouTube as a source of information has changed everything in regards to Adventism. Boy, it has had a bigger impact, hasn't it? What are
Yeah,
your
that's
thoughts on
true.
that?
Yeah, that's true. I think that that's the case, and for whatever reason, the General Conference did not see fit to consult me about this document. Which
Even though
obviously
David Trim said historians need to be brought in, because obviously they're
yeah.
not.
Again, I don't think he means me, but
I bet he listens to your show.
I don't think he does. But more on that another time.
I invited him on here, and I got a
Yeah.
rejection letter.
Oh, at least you heard back. That's good.
Might have
Yeah,
been via his mother.
Yeah, I don't think. Anyways, where were we going with this?
Lockdown, COVID. We were saying a couple of things.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, and
So I
historians,
guess
historians being involved.
yeah. No, I was really going back to the lockdown thing. The idea here is they want to publish these books to try to persuade people. And again, are books really the best way to go right now? I do appreciate that they're going to produce a bunch of videos. That's great, but I think that's maybe more of that if you guys want to persuade people, and less really thick technical books.
Yeah, good point. Peter writes, is it the identity of the Seventh-day Adventist Church and who we are, the important thing, or who Jesus is and our individual identity in him?
Well, that sounds true. I think it's true in a personal sense, but we're talking about corporate identity here as on this planet. And it's okay to have a corporate identity as a golfer. You're part of the golfing community, or I don't know why you'd want to do that, but some of you may be, or the hot tubbing community, or whatever. We all have these little tribes we belong to, and for Seventh-day Adventism, that is another one of those tribes. And of course, your personal relationship with Jesus is what matters most, I think. But if you belong to the church, I think one should care about that community.
Arthur Klim has written, whatever happened to we have much to unlearn, the GC is determined to imprison belief in the amber of the 19th century and of Ellen White.
Yeah.
If Ellen White believed it, we cannot move from it.
Hold on, Arthur. I like the imprisoned in amber. That's very Jurassic Park of you.
Very, very well said.
Does that mean with some amphibian DNA, we can reanimate Ellen White? We can clone her like Jurassic Park? I'm really intrigued by this, and I'm very open to it. Those scientists who don't believe in evolution, can we put them on this instead?
Yeah.
I want a Jurassic Park with Ellen White there.
That would be amazing. A clone. She'd have no memory of what her previous self had said.
Of course.
But we can certainly thaw her doctrines and revisit them quite easily.
Yeah. We'll give her early writings right off the bat.
Yeah. The original version. Nellie has said, don't dare question anything. She must have joined a bit late because she's saying, what's slippage? And that's just the leaders at this particular session are concerned that Adventism is slipping away from its core doctrines.
Yes, that's it.
And she has said, should it be backslidage? Because GD had just written, he's referring to the noticeable number of people leaving the cult. That's interesting. And someone else, remember, if you're watching on Facebook, please put your name in there. I'm going to start not using comments from people that haven't put their name. Plug the hole. Slippage means control, motivated by fear. How much of is this fear? Because you've seen this loop within Adventism as you've studied the history of Adventism. How much is it fear, or just some kind of the belief that Jesus is coming back any day? We have a special plan. It kind of loops. It's hard to escape from.
Yeah. I think it's definitely fear. I think the question is, what is the origin of the fear? I mean, I can fear if my daughter's playing in the street that a car can come, and that's a very acceptable fear, right? It's a natural, loving kind of fear. And then there's the irrational fears, that are actually can drive your family members away, can drive others away because you're, just living in constant anxiety and there's no security. So I guess the question is, of course, it's fear. There's fear that Adventism is losing its way. That's what they would say. The question is whether that fear is warranted or not, and whether this is the way to solve it.
And I think because we're going back, there's some questions about things we've actually already covered. I'll just skip forward a little bit. Often hierarchies will declare good intentions for their need for assessment and an increase in their control. This is Ted circling again for compliance to his fundamentalist LGT views. That's what I was kind of saying. It might be, but it was. I was kind of inferring too that there's a bit of a circling back to that. Someone has written, "Love your work, Matthew. Great podcast."
Thank you.
And Arthur has written, if you've never listened to his podcast, you have a lot of great listening ahead of you. He has the ability to make dry material both interesting and entertaining. That is true.
You know what? That's what everybody says. It's like so many people are like, I thought it would suck. It didn't. And it's like, well, I really benefit from super low expectations of Adventist history. So that's I don't know if it's really that I'm a good podcaster or just everybody has zero expectations that this could be listenable after 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I'll take it either way.
So it's that way. If no one listens, you're fine. If people listen, you're okay as well. This is an interesting thought. Salvation by works does sometimes work for a church. And if you look at things from an evolutionary perspective, a more tightly controlled tribe keeps people together more, and their babies that grow within it stay within it, and then those babies have babies with other babies. There's some evidence to suggest that a more tightly controlled tribe actually flourishes more as far as having babies.
Yeah. I mean, it's worked for Adventism for a long time.
Yeah. And
it's kind of a high risk, high reward faith.
Oh, that's a great quote. High risk, high reward faith. I'll quote you on that one.
Okay.
The goal appears to be uniformity of thought. Why is that necessary? Easy for me to say as a non-believer. Why
I don't know if that's the goal, but I think it's not far off. So, I don't know. I'd love to hear them articulate what specifically they want from the church.
Yeah, I think this particular document is getting close to it, and I don't think it's turned into policy yet. They're still discussing it, so I think it's going to be very
voted.
interesting to see. Oh, it did get voted?
Yeah, overwhelmingly.
Really?
There's still work that needs to be done to it, but yeah.
I love how they pass into policy these things, but the total write-up's not finished yet.
Right.
You can adjust things later.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, that's.
But you heard the comments. I mean, most people, even people who were opposed to the compliance committees, were in favor of this.
Right. Yeah. I'd love to know what the Norwegian guys think about it, but they're the only.
Come on.
They're the only radical dissidents that are brave enough to stand up in the Adventist Church.
All right, get the fish people, get the canned fish people.
Yeah,
comment on this.
Yeah, surely you can put me in touch with someone who knows the Norwegian guys, Norwegian and Danish guys. Those watching, surely you know. We're not sure on this stat, but anyway, if you asked Ted why 50% 56% are leaving our church. My guess is he would say this is due to compromising our 28 fundamental beliefs, particularly in our higher education. 100% he would say that.
Yeah.
And that's the
I
whole
believe
that's the whole last generation theology in a nutshell. That lady even said, if we'd been following Ellen White's three angel messages, Jesus would have returned by now. And Ted agreed.
Yeah. There's something very attractive about that, Peter, because what it means is everything is within my ability to control things. What if they're leaving because we failed to reach them in some way, or maybe they just find reasons not to believe in God anymore, whatever it may be. There are those reasons we can't control. But if it's like, oh, we just weren't faithful enough, if that's what it always boils down to, then it's entirely up to me whether Jesus comes back or not. It's entirely up to me whether the church grows or not, because all I have to do is not drink coffee, and we win. You know what I mean? Because it puts the fate of all things in my hands, and that's a very comforting thing when you want to be able to control things and have the fate of things in your hands, right?
The fate is in your hands to such a degree that if collectively the effort is put in, it's so powerful that Jesus will return. That's how important the fate is in your hands of the power to bring Christ's return faster.
Exactly.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Now, Chris Lucas, The Protestant View Live. Chris, I haven't watched any of your shows yet. Can you share a link and I'll go and watch one? They couldn't possibly be dumb enough to believe that an ignorant bunch of people who didn't even know how to recognize a true Jewish calendar would be able to test for sure whether she was a prophet.
Well,
take that as a comment and talk about Test the Prophet. I haven't seen him around in the last little while.
That's true. I haven't
Great
either.
show, Test the Prophet. I saw and met him and now know who he is when I went to the former Adventist Fellowship at Loma Linda.
Oh, he was there.
I met him face to face and I now know who he is.
Did you test him to make sure that he really was Test the Prophet?
Yes. I said, show me your hands and talk.
That's not creepy at all. I love it. So you should start a channel testing Test the Prophet. And
it was an easy test. As soon as you saw his hands moving and I put the camera above it and filmed it, and I said, now talk. Yep, you're Test the Prophet.
There you go.
I always thought he might have had an actor in there, but no, it's the guy, and a great person, wonderful individual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Risky showing his own fingerprints.
I know. I think his hands are upside down. It was this way.
Never turns them over at all in any of those videos?
Oh, he does. Oh, I'll have to check my footage.
Yeah, I'm going to get a screen grab and start tracing that fingerprint, and then we're going to run it in the general conference database. We're going to find out who he is, Peter.
I already know.
Yeah, but the rest of us are going to find out. And we'll see you at annual council.
I've had. He might already be there.
Oh, it's Ted Wilson, isn't it? It's secretly. It's his side project.
His side project to bring balance.
Yeah.
A lot of people, because I promised that I'd show a little video of my experience, and I started kind of working on it more intentionally last night. And the 77 clips that I took, they're not all long. They're all between 1 minute and 10 minutes. But I'm having to edit all these 77 clips. That's why it's taking a little while. Let's bring back Chris here has said, but if they recognize other prophets, it would make more sense to me as to why, even though she got a lot of things wrong, they would still accept her as a prophet.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
We can talk about Anna Rice sometime.
Fascinating. Yeah. Do you know much? Did you do a show on her? I've forgotten that one. If you did.
I mentioned her when I got to that, but
I would love to do a whole show on her. Just quickly tell people who Anna Rice was.
Oh, she was somebody in the 1890s who some of the church leaders, well, Ellen White was your way. thought was a prophet. And perhaps, and so anyways, and Ellen White comes home and says, no.
Shuts her down.
Yeah, it's a shut door there.
Yeah, she gave her the TED treatment. She gave her the TED talk.
Yeah, the TED talk. I love it.
And she backed right off, didn't she? Does she have any writings
Yeah.
that we can explore? Maybe she was a true prophet. Maybe we need to bring her back, her teachings back out of the amber.
You know what? Maybe she's in the amber too, I was going to say.
Oh, I bet you. So, yeah, let me know if she had any actual writings that we could examine.
You know, I don't know that she did. Her or Margaret Rowan, which was another one.
Yeah, they probably would have been
Mark.
all erased, burnt.
Well, you know, it's hard to say.
Ellen didn't like any pushback.
No, but I mean, you know, stranger things have happened in terms of documents being preserved.
That's true.
I mean, goodness gracious.
1919 conference minutes.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Oh, well, those watching, my researchers, see if you can find out some Anna Rice material. Arthur Klim has written, I just did a search. Most scholars think Revelation was written about 95 or 96. So I withdraw my comment. I can't remember what the comment was.
Okay.
Okay, we're just jumping down. Ray has said Adventists are Bible illiterate. Thanks, Ray.
Okay.
Peter Mashenko has said again, I always look forward with great anticipation to the 22nd of each month for your podcast drop, Matthew. The current Des Ford series is riveting. Oh, have you started the Des Ford series?
Yes, I have. We're 2 episodes into it. We're going to do a 3rd one next week.
Mate, now you've got access at least to my subscription group so you can see because I haven't sent you a hard drive. So most of the material you'll want is in there. You'll have to teach me how to get AI to give me all the script of videos. I want to start doing that to some of mine.
Oh, yeah, that's easily done.
And I'm praying for you to be able to choose where your Glacier View Inquisition will be when it comes. Keep up the great work.
You know what, Peter? I'm willing to break some news right now. When my heresy trial comes around, I want it to be at Disney. I want all of my inquisitors to have to enter a theme park and leave their guardian angels behind in order to try me.
I love it. Try you on the biggest ride.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd watch that movie.
Make sure you watch the Ankerberg Bill Johnson statements that the majority were against Des, and then watch my interview with him, season 2, episode 1, where he said, no, the majority were with him. That to me is the ground zero biggest lie perpetuated, interestingly, ironically, paradoxically, by him in the early days, and then corrected by him after he retired.
Yeah.
You know, the consensus was with him, and he was able to agree with that. That's Friday morning. Come Friday afternoon, wheel out the little 10-pointer just with him in a small group. I can't put that, but don't worry about it. That's not part of the vote. You don't even need to worry. Just out of interest, what are the areas you can definitely not agree with? And that was the end for him. So hopefully you make sure you bring that out there, or I will shun you. I will shun you as a friend. I'll be subtly
talk about that.
I'll be subtly adding ad hominem attacks to you.
That's the only way to do it, Peter.
I never would.
I will say I have listened to every minute of the Glacier View tapes.
Oh, I know when you said that to me last time.
We're done now. I've listened to them all. I've taken lots of notes.
You're one of the only people on the planet. Like in my interviews, we were even saying, are they available? Are they out there? You know, and when you said to me in our last interview that you were listening to them and had access to them, you've got no idea how jealous I was. I nearly hopped on a plane and snuck in with you into where they were. Where are they? Are they at Andrews? PUC?
No, they're at the at the general conference. At the general conference.
Oh man, that would just be. So tell me, was it revealing? Did you learn stuff that was different to what I presented in season 2 with the 86
Okay, well, I didn't
interviews?
watch all of season 2, so I can't make the comparison, but I will say
Yet.
I was surprised to not be very surprised, because I think most everything that happened, like the scolding of Dez, that all of that had been reported. Obviously, Cottrell spilled the beans on a lot of that. Other people talked about it, obviously, afterwards. It got talked about to death. There really wasn't a whole lot. What I thought was more interesting, actually, were the meetings with Dez before Glacier View. There's 3 meetings with him to kind of steer the manuscript, and I never got a chance to listen to every single one of those, but I listened to some hours of that, and that was really interesting because people were very free to I guess speak their mind in a room with 10 people or so than they were at Glacier View with all the top brass there. So I found that
Mm,
I feel like people just skip over that and get the Glacier View, and I understand why. But to me, it was far more revealing to see
interesting.
what happened in that little steering committee.
Wow. Yeah, well, I did not know you'd started, so I'm going to go and start listening again. Now, with the consensus vote, though, did you hear that happening? Could you hear Bill Johnson raise it, and they voted on it? That's what he said
Yeah, no,
on the Friday morning.
I can go back and check my notes, but off the top of my head, I'm trying to think here. Um, that I don't remember that. I don't remember that vote. There, not everything that happened there was recorded, and so that's people who were there are always going to have a better perspective on these things. But for what was recorded, which was probably the majority of it, I got to remember. I'll have to look back at my notes. I have dozens and dozens of pages of notes, and it's been some time since I've
Yeah,
listened to them.
because to me that is a super important thing to see identified, because to Bill Johnson, he's on. When I interviewed him in season 2, episode 1, he was elated. As he recounted that moment where they thought there was going to be light at the end of the tunnel, they're going to move forward, and that the consensus statement was, or document, whatever, was voted on, and it's a 2-part document. To
Yes.
me, that's kind of at the core of the whole defrocking of Des. Like, if it'd be fascinating to know. I mean, so many people have recounted that they were sitting behind Des and they heard him say, "Yeah, I can go along with that." Gillian has said that. Bill
Yeah.
Johnson himself said he and 2 others worked on the document. I think it was he and Fritz Guy and another guy.
Yeah.
And that it was voted on the Friday morning. So maybe if we could do another, because you'll be trying to do your Des Ford podcast before you start working for the conference office, and get that out of your hair.
No. No,
So when it's
I can't.
how many episodes do you think you'll do on it?
Probably 4 or 5. So I've got 2 down. I'll do one more next week. He'll probably get us up to Palmdale. Then probably Palmdale 2, just to the Adventist Forum presentation, maybe.
Mm.
And then from there to Glacier View. So I guess that's like 3 episodes right there. Then Glacier View, then the aftermath. So I don't know. Maybe we have like 6. I don't know.
And have you had a read of? I think you've mentioned that you've had a read of Gillian's volumes. Did she send?
Yeah, I have them all right over here off camera.
Because she's got. I'm going to be interviewing her next week or the week after about volume 6, and this is number 7, I think, in the series. Yeah, volume 7. Not released
I've got
yet.
7
I
right
think
over there.
it'd be important for you to go through those as well. I would love when that's done. Let's come back and have a chat about what your thoughts are. I'd love that. Well, if you're okay, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'd be
still
very
with us?
happy. I'll give you a little snippet. Here. On Friday morning, at when Neil Wilson, who's the father of our current General Conference president, he was the General Conference president back then. For those who may not know, he gets up. He had a sense of humor that it always strikes me as kind of being half serious at all times, but also he could be funny, Anyways, he tells everybody in the room at Glacier View, and I'll quote him here. I do want to remind you that the immunity that you were granted in the first meeting is soon to run out. From now on, you will be held accountable for your teaching and preaching and writing. People laugh. There's laughter on the tape. Sometimes when you just read things, you don't know how it was received.
Yeah, that's why the listening to
Whether
the
it
tape
was
is so important.
yes. And so, anyways, people laughed, but there's a little seriousness in there, right?
Yeah. truth in jest. And Ted and Des wasn't allowed to speak, but there was a couple of times he did speak, though, didn't he?
Yep.
And was he shut down, or there's perhaps going into urban myth where he was kind of told off a bit by Neil?
He was, yeah.
And do you talk about that in your?
He was. I will when we get to it. Yep.
Yeah, when you get to it. Yeah, awesome.
I have the verbatim notes on that.
You must have been a pig in mud.
I really was.
I wish I could find a different. What? I don't know. What's the better analogy? Hey, let's get back to the topic. But I cannot wait to talk to you about that one.
Hold on. One more comment on this.
Yeah.
Peter, it's occurring to me for the first time that with a little hair dye, you could come across as David Trim. Have you thought about walking into the general conference dressed like him and see how far you can get?
Round glasses, tweed waist jacket. I could put on my Pommy accent. Yeah. I have that equivalent observation has not passed me. In fact, when I first saw him, I said, "Love the hair."
Yeah. Okay.
I can't believe that he gets away with it, because a lot of people with long hair get judged as being very liberal, progressive, muso brain.
Yeah.
But he's very scientific and focused and quite conservative.
He is.
Yeah.
He is. But you underestimate how much we Americans admire the British and think that they're sophisticated.
Yeah, no, I get that. And that's why I think that lady that was on just before Ted, I don't think I played it today. She's sitting behind him. She's English with a very nice English accent. And I can just imagine all the Americans going, "Wow, I love her accent. We believe whatever she says because we love her accent."
Absolutely. Yeah. Still will throw your tea in the water, but love the accent.
Yeah. Whereas Aussies are always like, "Oh, no, they're larrikins, they're dissidents. You guys cause all the trouble." Yeah. Okay, let's get back on topic, though I love our little sidetracks. Anyone know the name, location of the spring meeting document with the recommendations? Now, that's a good question, Schley. It would be worth, I don't know if you have a link there that you could put in the comments. I just
I don't know
searched.
if I have a link.
I just searched GC Spring Session 2024 and listened to day 1 and day 2, and that what I played earlier today was halfway through day 2.
Yeah, just go to executivecommittee.adventist.org, and that is a website that has documents.
Arthur has written, Joel 2 says that your sons and daughters shall prophesy, and I will pour out my spirit on all. But Adventism distills that to your young woman who shall become old, and then it stops. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the shutting down of Anna Rice? Maybe there was and is room for the spirit of prophecy to continue within the Adventist Church.
Yeah. I mean, I think hypothetically we've always been open to it, but yeah, I don't know.
MC has said White Estate is much more open than in the late 70s. I heard a recording of researchers pretty frustrated with White Estate roadblocks. And
I'm curious about that recording.
Yeah, and he said the room was just electric, totally maddening. Now, MC is related to a lot of top brass. MC,
it's not secretly Michael Campbell, huh?
So no, but yes, I met MC at former Adventist Fellowship too. I won't say. I'll say no more. But MC, am I
Ah.
right? I'm correct with that handle, aren't I? And I'll say no more. I'll protect your identity.
Man, is this like is that former Adventist just like the witness protection program there to?
It was fascinating, I've got to tell you. And Arthur says, "Why did it stop with John? Tradition makes it so, doesn't it?" Yeah. Interesting. I met so many people there. And I'm sitting at a table. James Wagner came along, and he was the attorney for Walter Ray.
Yeah,
And
right.
I've interviewed him, but he and I are there chatting. And next minute, in walks Steve Daly, and he sits down opposite
Yeah,
me. Hi, Steve. Like these people I've seen
yeah,
online. And he
right.
pops in, gives me
They're
one of
real,
his new books, Test the
of
Prophet.
course.
I could see this guy looking at him. I thought, you're him, aren't you? And he goes, I think you know. And I thought, yep, heard his voice, very distinctive
Yeah.
voice.
Look, I
It
love
was,
you all, but this just sounds like a meeting of the Bond villains. It's like Goldfinger's getting together with Dr. No, and you
oh, yeah. This is for Matthew here from Peter Mashenko.
Oh,
Matthew had some great insightful thoughts and questions on how to negotiate the potential of disagreeing with Ellen G. White on a point,
did
springboarded
I?
by the lady's comment at Glacier View. Does Matthew think that it's possible for SDA Church to allow a reframe of the role and virtual infallibility of Ellen White, should it wish to, or does he think it's probably structurally impossible? Boy, that's a good question.
I mean, it's not structurally impossible, but whatever. I mean, it can still be impossible in another way. It's culturally extremely difficult.
Mm,
You don't change unless the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of changing.
yeah.
So that there's no reason to change if it's more comfortable.
Mm.
So
Another
I'm not
question.
recommending anything. I'm not saying anything. I'm just
You're
just
saying what
philosophizing.
Danny 14 said essentially the same. The jury's out.
Yeah.
But you've added an extra little twist there that I like, where, why would people change if the change was brought about too much discomfort? We love
Yeah.
comfort, don't we? We're people that we're a species that enjoys comfort. Matthew, do you believe that the new document will actually be implemented? It appears to be a mission impossible to me. So what you said, Matthew, is that it has gone into policy, and I guess what George is saying is, will it garner teeth? Will it have power?
I think I wrote a comment to you when my internet was down, George.
Oh,
I
yes.
think it will at least be partially implemented there. Yeah, but whether or not it achieves its goals is anybody's guess. And the question is, I mean, just to put on my politician hat for a second, and the question is, does the document itself need to succeed? It telegraphs values. You know what I mean? You don't need to put somebody on the board of an Adventist institution if like-minded people read this document and you say, yep, that's what we need to do. They can take it upon themselves to kind of be the enforcers of orthodoxy. You can stir people up to say, you know what, let's get rid of this professor or get rid of this pastor. You don't have to have a document that forces people to do that. If just by the language one uses, you can indicate a direction you want your followers to go.
Yes.
Now, whether they will in this case or not, I don't know. But this has happened before in Adventism, and I'm not saying it's done happening.
No.
Could
And that
happen again.
explains silence. A lot of the people I know that work for the union or the SPD just say to me, well, we're not really speaking up yet till we know which way it goes with Ted.
Yeah, we have General Conference next year.
Yeah. And I've jokingly said to George that Mark Finlay is going to be the new guy. And he said, no way, it's the Brazilian guy that's being shepherded into the role. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Well, that's the future. It's not history,
You
so
know,
you don't want to think about it.
what what are the Vegas odds? I on who the next GC president's going to be. I think yeah, that's what I've heard too. But who knows? They just had a big shakeup down in Brazil
Yeah, that's right. That's why I think my
with
prediction is
some
going to come
fraud.
true. It's my
I
prediction.
don't know.
George, you watch. Mark Finlay. It's being groomed. It's going to be him.
I'd
That's
like to
my
see a non-American.
Yeah, I think that's what they were thinking, but now they think, hang on a second, we've got to have one more term steering it before we go there.
Mm.
So Peter Bashenko said, don't expect to be taught the real scientific method, perhaps at an Adventist institution. That's his takeaway. That's definitely
right.
where they're headed.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be interesting now that Avondale has been turned from college to a university, if I could track down their science department and say, hey, come on the program and share your true views of evolution and 6,000-year-old,
Yeah. Well,
Earth. And
the
I know I've
Geoscience
interviewed.
Research Institute would be happy.
I've interviewed two well-known locals with PhDs, and both have disavowed anything to do with a 6,000-year creation or a 6-day literal event as well. But both of them are retired.
Yes.
So, yeah. So MC has said, when teaching science, it would be nice if those teaching would be aware on Thomas Clune's book, The Structure of Scientific Revolution. Yes.
Oh, that's a classic.
Good idea. Good suggestion there, MC. When teaching science, you've written it twice. And good to have Stephen Beagles here. That's nice. My two favorite people. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah. I question your taste, but I do accept the compliment. Thank you.
And we've got Dale watching. How are you, Dale? Didn't know you had this podcast. Yes, I'm sneaking in a Tuesday as well. Normally the Tuesdays are going to be a shorter, like a Pete reaction video, 10, 20 minutes. That's the plan. But today we've just twisted around the week a little bit. And this we've just answered. So Gillian asked about the Des Ford podcasts. What kind of feedback have you had so far on these? So this is Des's wife, Gillian. Great to have you watching, Gillian.
I see. It is to me. I haven't really gotten any feedback. As you know, Gillian, because I know you've shared those episodes on social media, these are kind of innocuous, kind of biographical, early Des Ford kind of stuff. We haven't really gotten at anything super controversial. We're just trying to trace the genesis of these ideas across his life.
Yes,
Ask me again in 2 more
watch
episodes.
this space. Yeah, exactly. Several new jobs will be created. Title: Witch Hunters. Isn't there a title? Isn't there a new title or a new role that they're going to be trying to establish at grassroots levels where there is an Ellen G. White kind of go-to advisory person? Tell us a little bit about that.
They want that. I think that was that last fall at annual council. I haven't seen it look like anything yet. So it's a lot of these things we can get worked up about documents, but until we actually see them happen, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, that's true. Because I was, well, not wrong yet, but I was certainly the person saying that you watch this space, the compliance document's going to have teeth, and next minute it still doesn't have teeth. Now I've just got a question here from Cindy Lou, who mainly watches on YouTube, and so it's I'm just going to tell her the date. She loves watching Arthur and Teresa Beam's program. This is tomorrow. Peter, do you actually post your upcoming tracks on Facebook? Facebook is where you'll find out, and it's in the description below. Join the Facebook group. That's where you'll find out the weekly what's coming up. I haven't gotten great like Miles Christian on Answering Adventism, where he has it all on YouTube, what's coming up. I don't know how to do that yet, but I'll try and learn that. So just letting people know, I'm just picking it up here. Tomorrow, I'll be interviewed on their show, which is going to be Wednesday 11:30 my time and Tuesday 9:30 p.m. EST. So it's a bit later. That's Eastern Standard Time, I think. So those that do want to watch my interview, I can't guarantee it's going to go live. They do an edited version, which will come out in a week or so. But I am going to try my best to piggyback it live into here. So, yeah. And then Denny 14, Dr. Denny 14 on Thursday, 10:30 a.m. my time, Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. New York time. Yes. So this is a little hint from MC. This is the MC I know. So, yeah.
Wait. Is it MC Hammer?
MC Hammer. Yeah,
It's not much of a
I was going to start
disguise,
singing
MC.
it, but it'll get copyright. But I would love to interview MC. He is related to everybody that's currently working at the GC level. Like 50% of his in-laws, relatives,
Amazing
family.
I'd like to talk about that.
Mm-hmm. So maybe I can send you. I've got his phone number even.
Can you like black out his face and then have him use a voice changer?
Yeah. Oh, some people wish I had that. I was reminded of an old girlfriend the other day, and how I had to break it off with her because she couldn't stop counting. I wonder what she's up to now.
Oh my goodness! Come on.
What's that? What's he referring to there?
It's just a joke. I wonder what she's up to now. Like, what number is she up to now?
Oh, very funny. See, I'm not even thinking along those lines. Oh, yes, great. Right, we're coming down. We're spending some time on these questions because it is a great opportunity to ask them to you, but we will wrap up very soon.
Adventist in the word soon.
Yeah, I know. Or the imminent return that we affect.
Yeah.
Like, what's your thought? I've often said with my progressive brothers and sisters who just go, I can't believe that Adventists have fallen for this last generation theology cray. And I go, what do you mean you can't believe it? It's literally at the core of Adventism. Ellen White's got like 1,000 statements that confirm that she believed it too. Why is that?
Why is it that it's hard for some people to accept that last generation theology has deep roots within Adventism? You'll have to ask them that. It's not hard for me to understand. Actually, I was just having this conversation earlier today with Carl Wagner about this. It's like, why did Leroy Froome say that basically the LGBT people were the lunatic fringe?
Yeah,
he had to have known that they were the majority, or at least a sizable minority, if not a majority. Why, he knew what books were in the ABC. He knew what the General Conference president had written and published. I don't know why it seems to surprise people who should know better.
Yes, I'm glad you agree with me. Thank you. And a few people are just joining us and commenting on your history podcast. I'm just bringing that up again so that people can go check it out.
I will say, let me drop a little Easter egg for people who have been here so long. I am going to be in New Zealand next June.
What?
So, they're going to have a digital discipleship conference there. I'm not talking about history, but you know me, I'll probably work it in somehow. And so we're going to talk about digital discipleship. And if anyone wants to come out and say hi, I'll be in Auckland.
Only 3.5 hours from there, flight-wise.
Perfect.
I wonder when you're not stopping in Sydney on your way there, or you're direct from LA.
Maybe that's how that will work. I don't know. I haven't got a flight yet.
I was in Sydney at a trade show a few weeks ago, and Matthew Cortman messaged me and said, "I'm in Sydney," and I couldn't go and meet him, but he was literally under 500 meters away from where I was actually standing. And I said, "Can you
Really?
come out to the front of the trade show and I'll quickly run out. We can just say hi." But he was literally just hopping into a taxi going off somewhere else. And so we tried to catch up on his return flight. He was going to New Zealand as well. So there's a good chance you'll be in Sydney. Let me know, and I will drive down
Okay.
and drop everything to try and catch up and see you.
Hey, I appreciate
That'd
that.
be
That's great.
fantastic. Yeah. Boy, the digital convention would be great. I'd be interested in maybe even going there and on behalf of SDAQ&A and just getting a feel for what's going on. So send me info about that too. Now,
Okay.
this is a good question. We've discussed this before.
Dr. Lucio.
No, they're not, unfortunately, Cindy Lou. Do you think they ever will become available?
I can't say. You know, they're far more open access now than they were. So the trend is maybe towards that direction, but this is not so much a Glacier View thing. It's an archives thing in general.
Yeah.
You know, they have a lot of old tapes and stuff, some of which has been made available online, like recordings of GC sessions and stuff. I think 1946 is the first one that we have audio for. It's free. It's on the website. So there is a trend in that direction.
Mm.
But there's a lot of most of the audio is not online, and it's not because it's sensitive. It's just I don't know. It's just a policy thing.
It's just the way
The whole
archiving
point of
often
archives.
works. Mm.
Yeah, exactly. So you know, maybe someday. I hope so. I want all the
Yeah.
information to be available digitally for everybody.
Someone has asked you. You're the only one I know who has heard those early pre-Glacier View tapes. Des said they all went silent when they knew they were being recorded. Interesting.
No, they were not silent.
And MC.
I mean, I don't know what the context is when he said that, but
MC has said he's pretty sure his uncle was there with Neil, and I wouldn't doubt it.
Oh, MC, who's your uncle?
Yay!
Excuse me, Ted. Yeah, we've almost got him. Yeah, I'll keep working on it. Sorry, I just had to take that call. Didn't mean to interrupt.
I totally understand. This is a good question. You've told me. I'm not sure if you've announced it here. Will you continue your podcast after you relocate to the Illinois Conference?
So, Cindy Lou, I already live in the Illinois Conference as a pastor. I'm relocating just north to Chicago. I will continue the podcast. However, when I'm done with Desmond Ford, I'll do one recap episode and then I'm done. So I will go back and redo season 1 at some point in the near future, but my podcasting days, let's just say most of them are behind me. And I'll do some YouTube stuff.
But you were saying they're not restricting you. You're not slowing down because of that. Yeah.
Nope. Yeah. Nobody has said anything to the effect of saying I shouldn't do that or anything. In fact, it's been pure encouragement.
Peter Mashenko says, thanks so much for the generosity of your time and opinions, Matthew, and Peter, for dedicating your time for these valuable discussions. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're coming to the close of our questions, so we're going to wrap it up in a minute. Peter adds, come and get a photo of yourself next to your photo at the E.G. White Memorial Bridge. Hey, that's a good idea. Wouldn't that be classic?
Let's do it.
Catch. I'll pick you up. I'll pick you up at the airport. We'll drive. It's only an hour and 40 minutes north. We'll drive up, walk you under the bridge, take a photo. Classic.
Yeah,
that'd be great. Peter, you join us as well. We'll all go to the local takeaway and have gluten steak burgers.
That sounds exciting.
I remember the days when the White Estate Vault would not share anything with anyone. And Cindy Lou Wu, who are you? I'd love to know more about you. You have some insights that reveal that you have some connections also. There's some connections.
Oh, I see. You didn't meet her at Former Adventist Fellowship?
Maybe I did, but she didn't reveal. Jillian has...
Dun, dun, dun.
Jillian has said,
oh, yeah, that's
Des
right.
knew what people thought, and the ones who knew most said least. He said the ones who knew least said most. Very interesting, Jillian. And that's the whole point of what I'm trying to do is to those who know a lot and are still saying not much. I can be seen as constantly kind of stirring them up, but only because by doing so, I'm actually getting some results. So yeah, but well said. And what are your thoughts on that? And I wonder if knowing that the recording was on, that did shut them up.
Well, I mean, I think so, but they were assured that, I mean, in fact, at the end of the Glacier View recordings, they asked who would have access to these, and Neil told them that anyone who was at Glacier View was free to come and listen to them again, but they were not going to be made public. And you know, so I think they were reassured that these were not going to become public. And I think that's probably part of the reason why they haven't become public, right?
Yeah, they've honored that. They're waiting till they're all dead and gone. Then they'll come public.
We're getting there.
Sadly. That's why I'm so glad I did season 2, because a lot of the people that I interviewed were
Yes.
there. So it's an important document.
Season 2 was huge.
I've almost given up the idea of being able to monetize that season, and thank you to those who are contributing $5 a month to have access to them at the moment. But I'm currently uploading them all unedited. You'll be interested to know. This is an update for you. Onto
Good.
a YouTube channel called Season 2 Only, or something like that. And that it's just saving me time, because I was trying to edit them and put them up, and I thought, well, then I can make them as a part of Vimeo or some of the other channels where people just pay to have access. And I thought, you know what, who cares? No one cares. I'd rather have people have access. So they're I can send you that link and you can start looking at them. But your access to the subscribers group's fine. But this will be much quicker, because I literally, after every show here, I just find the file, go to the new YouTube channel, and just upload it, and everything is uploaded, and then there it is for people to watch. But that only takes me, of my time, maybe an hour, and maybe 2 hours to upload, whereas editing was taking me 6 to 9 hours per show. It was just never going to happen. So I'm already up to about episode 6 now.
No, nice.
Yeah, so it'll start happening fast.
But anyways, yeah, you can, on YouTube, you can have certain videos only for subscribers, and so you can keep it all on the same channel, right? And
oh, really?
Just kind of earmark. Yeah.
On YouTube, even if you don't have 1,000 subscribers.
I don't know what the threshold is for being able to do that. But come on, we can get you 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah, because we've
give up on Facebook and say, get on YouTube, everybody.
Yeah, because it's worked here. Like in the YouTube channel, we got over 1,000, and Facebook we're at over 1,000. So we're able to do some new things now with the YouTube here. But this is now a whole new YouTube channel dedicated just to season 2. So maybe I need to build 1,000 up on there, but worth looking into. But I'm also kind of letting go of just trying to kind of I'm mainly trying to control how stupid I look. not look
well,
right.
At least you can.
I just come across so ignorant, but that's part of the journey. Nothing, that's just.
I mean, I listen. I cannot listen to my first episodes. I cannot.
It's funny, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I rarely
the hard thing about
watch back anything I've done.
Yeah. Because, I mean, the internet is a merciless place. You cannot grow on the internet. They look at something you did in 2005 and something you do in 2025. And even though there's 20 years difference there, it doesn't matter. You can watch those videos back to back and be like, wow, this guy really doesn't know anything. But it was 20 years ago. You know what I mean?
I know. That's the danger of it. Yeah. And that's how people look at Ellen White. It's just, so she said this in 1901. She said this in 1801. She said this in 1901. She said this in 1888. It's as if she said it the next day.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something we got to keep in mind all the time.
Mm,
Like, let her be a human being.
yeah, that's a whole other show we could do on that one.
Indeed.
Peter Mashenko says, after George Knight for GC president, Dr. J. Lucio for president. You better get that PhD down. I've already created the urban myth.
Yeah, you've given it to me now.
Yeah, you're in.
I've accepted it. I've accepted it. So I do not. You're guilty here, Peter, about
Yeah.
being GC president. Don't attach my name to that. I know.
Hey, well, now you're working at conference level. You're working your way up.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's only I'm within 8 trillion light years of it now. I'm getting closer.
You need to get in good with Mark Finlay, and then you'll become. You might be able to be vice president.
Yeah, I don't wish that upon myself. I have too much self-regard. That is the calling of another person. I enjoy my life, Peter, and I want to continue enjoying my
Continue
life. So
enjoying it.
Yeah, so stop wishing chains on me, Peter. I appreciate you, though. I want to see George Knight as GC president.
Oh, imagine that. Yeah.
It'd be hilarious.
And we got Perry Ford's writing back to Gillian. Yeah, a hollow vessel makes the most noise. So in closing, what kind of thoughts would you like to bring in summary to this very lengthy, informative, fascinating conversation?
Well, yeah, I think it is. I like this idea, by the way. And I know you just live to do these lives, but maybe when annual council comes around, you can just live stream it on your channel and just comment whenever you want to.
That's a good one.
And yeah, you can go see the agenda. Some things are more interesting than other things, right? You might comment on the SPD's report when they give their division report.
I'll just sit here and I'll play Angry Birds on this and sip a nice little beverage. And every time I hear something, I'll just comment.
Yeah, exactly. And thinking past that, Peter, General Conference is next year. Come on up, sit with me in the bleachers, and let's watch this thing.
I would love.
You can live stream from there too.
I wonder how I can live stream from their website into Restream. Anyway, I'm boring the listeners.
No. You just do a share screen. So you grab the window from another. I don't know if you have 2 monitors or whatnot.
So when I do my interview with Teresa and Arthur tomorrow, they're sending me a Zoom link. I can, so I'll be on Zoom. How do I then bring that into here? Sorry, everyone. We're just chatting now. You can head off if you need to.
Yeah. We can do that tech support. I mean, I think if they were willing to,
they're happy.
You'd send it to Restream and then have Restream send it to both your channel and their channel. That's what Restream's for, right? That's the beauty of it.
Yes, that's true. That's the whole name of it. Oh, well, I've got about 24 hours to work that out.
Yeah, no problem at all. I see Peter's asking there on Facebook when the next GC is going to be or where it's going to be, right? Or where is the GC? Yeah. It's going to be in St. Louis.
Oh, nice.
So it'd be great if they had one down under one of these times.
Yeah, well, look, SDAQ&A supporters, those who want to go, let's get some something coordinated. We should get a SDAQ&A stand there at their little trade show part of it. That'd be fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You could. It's probably about $1,500 a booth, but let's raise that money. Right, I thought about getting a booth there too.
Yes, we'll get it side by side.
Yeah, we'll get it side by side. Yeah, that'll go well.
Side by side we stand.
See, it's not just the Wheat Bix that I think. I don't know. I still insist you're a closet Adventist, or at least I still consider you one, just because of the sanitarium stuff.
Oh boy, there's
a chemical dependency.
There's another whole podcast. I view it more like I think I told you once before. I was obsessed with the golden age of movies at one point. And I spent at least 5 years every day reading every possible book I could find on that era. Every library I went to, I'd get books. bought books. This is pre-online, you see, and I just loved it. And Adventism's a bit like that to me. I kind of like your series on QOD was just amazing. I think I listened to it twice.
Oh wow.
And I wasn't an actor in the golden age of movies. I wasn't a member, but I was fascinated by it the way I'm fascinated with this. And I think people don't get my perspective, and so they wonder, why can I interview you? And then the week before I interviewed Bill Gates, not that one, the other one, about real conservative stuff. And to me, it's like watching a movie unfold around me that is so fascinating. It's like JFK and being on the grassy knoll, suddenly going back in time and just watching it. I'm not really there, but I'm there. So anyway,
that's funny. Yeah. I totally resonate with that, of course. I mean, I find Adventism to be such an interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Such an interesting thing to study. I mean, even though you kind of have it basically figured out, it still finds ways to surprise you from time to time.
Yeah.
Just like you thought they were going to confess their errors today, and
isn't that funny? Yeah, I thought this was all, wow, they're going to actually, retweak some of their incorrect doctrines. No. The opposite of that was happening. And I'm writing on all these Facebook groups. Oh, that's such good news. Someone has asked me to sell their books. Who has asked that? It's a Facebook user. Tell me who it is. And MC has said,
Jillian.
Oh, that could be. Yes. Great idea. Because Jillian has donated many books to me to sell. MC says, yes, get a booth. That's a joke. That could be funny in other ways. I won't go there. And then bring a subwoofer. Okay, I will.
Okay.
But yeah, I could.
Say what?
It is Jillian. Yes.
Jillian.
I will. Look, I'm going to look into that.
Sign some books, Jillian, and we'll take them to the general conference.
Look, Jillian has donated to me almost a crate's worth of books. We could fly them over. So, Jillian, you come with me. We'll get Adrian to join us. Anyone else from Australia? We're going to go. We're going to have a stall. We'll split the cost. And we're going to set it up next to Adventist History Podcast stall. And we're going to sell Des Ford books. Imagine.
Okay.
Mate, so good chatting with you. And it's funny, I've just left this support my channel QR code up as we've been chatting. And I've had about 5 people make a donation. I should just leave that up the whole time.
Well done, people. Just put it over my face, I
can't slide it.
Yeah.
So, mate, I've loved chatting
so
to you, and very much look forward to next time. We'll chat soon about your Des Ford series on the podcast. And everybody, go and find right now Adventist History Podcast. You will not regret it. You will absolutely love it. So it's actually popped. This is a new thing. Cynthia Phillips just made a donation. I wish I'd seen that before. I'd be thanking people as it went. So I'll try and do that.
I feel like this is like a public television fundraising thing going on right now. If you guys give $25 more, Peter will clip off some of his hair and send it to you as a souvenir. Do we have $25 more?
Hey, that's a good idea. Let's get the scissors out and I'll post it to you. I might just stay here for a little while with the QR code sitting there and just chat to people.
Yeah, I think you got a good thing going on.
Every little bit.
It's really the coffee. They think they're buying coffee.
Yeah, buy me a hot drink. That's
there you go.
Misleading, isn't it?
You know what though? This happened when you started talking about your vision for coming to the general conference. That got people excited.
Yeah. Oh boy, I am excited. I would love to. I was excited about going to former Adventist Fellowship. And I didn't expect that to happen, and it happened. So GC, SDAQ&A, heading to the GC next year. All your funds donate will go towards that dream. Until we meet again, my friend, Dr. Matthew J. Lucio has been in the house. See you all later.
Thanks.